and good evening to everybody from London. Good day, good morning, wherever you're watching us from. Today, it's just me, just me, just one wicked. The lovely Val could not be with us tonight, and Kay's off doing something, so it's just me. So I'm looking forward to seeing all your comments. I have some lovely people waiting to join us down in the boxes before I bring them on. But welcome to Wicked Women. It's lovely to see so many people join us. I want to say hello to, she says, putting the glasses on. Hi to Spirit, to Steph, to Dara. Welcome, Dara. I think you're a new. Hi, Sarah. To everyone that's watching, hello. How's your week been? Welcome to Wicked Women. It's Sunday. We all need a bit of wicked on a Sunday. You know, Sundays are just like the day that you just need a bit of an excitement. Hi, Tracy. How you doing? Hi, Alison. So today's topic, fantasy or reality. And it's something that Scotty and I talked about doing. And I think we did a show that was pretty similar. And when we talk about fantasy or reality, we often talk about what's real and what's not. And it can be in every single area of our life, but also about sex. What about fantasy and sex? Fantasy, role play, dressing up, all kinds of stuff, whatever goes, whatever floats your boat. And in our life, what's really real in our life and what's a fantasy. So I'm really interested to hear everyone's point of view today. And I'm going to bring in some of my lovely guests. Oh, thank you, Steph. It's so nice to be here too. I was like, I can't let the side down. I'm coming in. So I'm going to bring in some of my lovely guests. I'm not a happy camper. I need to fantasize over this. I'm going to bring in my I always say he's my original Mr. Wicked, and he's someone who supports me and the team. So let's bring in the lovely Michael. Hello.
Hello, darling. How are you?
I'm doing well, darling. How are you?
You look dashing. Well, I'm doing pretty good. I know I'm starting to feel better. You know, I was sick for a while, and to the point where I didn't even get a haircut. And you asked me, Jesus Christ, do something with your hair. It's all.
I was like, you got to do something with your hair. You look amazing, love. You really do.
And even the lady that cuts my hair, she's like, Jesus Christ, what have you done to your hair? I said, nothing, nothing. So I'm and like I said, I'm a really, really big. I like the whole idea podcast for women by women with men.
And that's what we did when we started with was to do that. But we also bring in the guys in because it's good to the two versions. And I'm going to bring in also the lovely Carlene. Hello, Carlene.
Hi there. Hi, Michael.
Hey, don't Carlene. You look lovely?
Yeah, Carlene. I called her last minute. I was like, look, we need another woman. I said, Sarah said a spy on the other side. And I tell people, you should always support your friends and loved ones in any adventure they do.
We all need to hear.
And Wendy has heard me tell everybody from where I buy my groceries and to the lady that cuts my hair to whatever on Sunday. If you're not doing it.
Late on YouTube, and our viewers are going up slowly, but obviously we've been away a lot this year. There's been a lot of sickness, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. We have not been around, so we realize we're sort of behind with the times, in the fact that Val's going through her own stuff. But let me just see. Steph says, well, Michael, my man toy got me sick at the moment. This is not the nurse and doctor fantasy I was thinking of. That sounds...
It goes back to, fantasy versus reality. And the best example I can think of this is when you think of showering with your significant other, your man toy, your trophy wife, whatever thing, you want to... it ends up one getting soaked up in the corner and the other one freezing to death because the hot water don't make it to them. And I used to always tease, like, we share together to save water. And it's never like in a movie. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, look at this. Everybody's all warm and happy. And the only share that I ever seen
that don't work.
I'm going to bring in my other guest, which is sitting very patiently very patiently.
JP, the one and
And I
only
know
JP.
he's gonna let me bring him in. Hello, darling.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Just relaxing this weekend.
Ladies, the viewing figures just went up. Two good looking men. Come on, what more do you want on a Sunday night? Or a Sunday daytime, I should say.
Yeah. It's been a pretty easygoing weekend, though. I've been slowly trying to go through things and parse things out, and for what to keep, what to get rid of. I may have an opportunity that might take me to just outside of St. Louis.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where all right, well, if that's going to go down, I need to start inching my way towards preparedness. So
well, it's tonight's subject, obviously, Jason, is fantasy or reality, and it's in every single area of our life, because Sarah writes a very good point that fantasy is an outlet to reconcile the life you want and the life you have. And I wanted to look at two levels of this. You've got the fantasy from the sexual side, let's just dress up, role play, all that kind of, area. And then you've got the fantasy of your life. Also, I want to look at being submissive and dominant and control, because control is very, very important in our life, especially when we're a very insecure or perhaps anxious person. To have control, to be in control of everything makes us feel safe. Now, I suffer from anxiety and I have panic attacks. So I'm going to come to each one of you by turn. And it's and to ask you, what areas of your life you feel you have control and those areas you don't. Let's come to Colleen, first of all, as my fellow lady. And it's what area of your life, Colleen, do you feel that you're in control of, or would you like to be in control of?
Oh God, there's a lot of them. I've gotten better. This move did a lot for as far as anxiety and panic. I got that under control and found out tonight it isn't quite as much under control as I thought, but I'm working on it.
And what about the areas that you do feel controlled in?
Oh gosh. Good question.
Really?
Good question. Like I said, every day it changes. Every day it's okay, I get up until this week. I got up and I'm okay, I'm able to finally go to work, earn a really decent living. Until they tried to make us work 60 hours and I hit the wall. But it's every day I'm I can get up and do what I want to do, whether it be work, whether it be going hiking out on one of the trails around here. It's that gives me control, because I've been able to control my anxiety and panic.
Do you find that in your life, Colleen, being very honest here, there are parts of your life that are so real that you could do with some fantasy in it? Or do you feel like some of your life it needs to have more realness, more reality in it? Because we talk about reality.
Little of both, I think.
Both.
Well, a little of both. Like I said, we ran into a brick wall here a few years back, and things haven't exactly gone quite according to plan. But so you fantasize some, and then some you have reality.
Well, I think we all like a bit of fantasy in our life. I mean, I often wonder if going to that side of things, Alec Baldwin was always my fantasy guy when I was younger. It was anything Alec Baldwin in, and he was my ideal guy. Jason Momoa, obviously, would be
Tom Selleck was my go-to. It's oh my God, that guy was hot.
What was that, Wendy?
What? Jason Momoa, not Jason Patrick. Jason Momoa.
Okay, I was
yeah.
But to bring up another subject, with my job, we also sell a lot of not exactly bobs, but other types, and it's wonder what that would be like, and so it's kind of whoa.
I was actually in Ann Summers yesterday, which if anyone wants to Google, it is annsummers.co.uk, and it's our best sex shop, and the stuff is really good. Everything they make is really good, underwear, etc. The outfits, and they have so many choices now for the battery operated boyfriends. You know, they're all silicone. They cost a lot more money. And I remember the good old days when using this as an example, and I wish Val was here tonight because she's been dying to talk about this subject. Do you remember when the Rabbit first came out? The Rabbit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Rabbit.
It was such a strange looking thing. And I really that we're going from one subject to another here, but
well, you know why it looks like that, right?
Why?
So well, okay, there's a purpose for how it's shaped, but the actual the imagery of rabbits, dolphins, various other whatever creatures they decide to do, where all that stuff originated in Japan, they have heavy regulations about what things can look like before they're considered culturally inappropriate.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they throw the rabbit on there with the rabbit ears and everything like that, and it's like, oh well, it doesn't look like, you know, all right, this is acceptable, and it just kind of went on from there.
Well, I was going to do the ladies a solid here. I've seen a thing called Tracy's Dog, and from the reviews that you read, they say outer body experience. You can thank me later. Just
what did you say? Tracy's Dog?
Look it up, JP. You will laugh till you spit. Oh yeah, it was like. But yeah, the lady said she pulled the muscle in her hip, fell on the floor, could not make conscious financial decisions, and she forgot what
he sent me the link to that, and it's true. They do write. They write everything down about that, and it's like
it sounds like you're going on a rug march. You know, stay hydrated, stretch out, get loosened up, and make no plans for yeah, probably that too, because you need, you know, like golf cleats for grip and shit. But
do you find, Michael, in your and I'm going to come to you boys next. Michael, do you find there's areas of your life that you're very realistic about, or you fantasize about, and control using those three things? What would you say in your areas of life those come under?
Here recently, I had a lot of expectations that I really want to do, but you know, life sometimes changes your perception of reality. You know, I'm thinking, you know, I've got all of this stuff lined out. This is the path I'm on. Then between sickness and death and family, you know, it makes you have to drop back and you have to regroup to your present reality so you can still get this done. You know, not that I've given up on any of that. It's just, and that's what I was going to say. I am so proud of Carlene. Carlene said, I'm getting the fuck out of cold climate. I'm moving south where it's warmer. And she made it happen. Yeah. She, what do you call it when you like project the reality you want? Yeah. And people probably told her at the time when she said, you know, screw y'all, I'm taking my igloo and moving south because I'm, you know, at a certain age you get where your bones hurt. You don't want to be in the cold. And she probably caught shit because people told her that you're dreaming, you're living in a fantasy land. It'll never happen. And I am so proud of her and her husband. I finally met him today, and I was sitting here waiting on my shirt to cool off. And I'm like, you know, normally I'm dressed for the show, but you know, he's a really nice man. And that's like one of the first time, you know, I'd got to meet him. And for people to pick up and move as far as she did, people probably told her over and over again,
"Oh yeah,
snap out of it, Carlene. You're a certain age, and never going to happen. You're fucking dreaming." You know, and I tell people who piss on other people's fantasies or their hopes and dreams are people with little or no ambition. And, you know, and they always say misery loves company. If they can make you miserable so you don't pursue your dreams or your fantasies, you know, and you know, they're happy. And that's like me and JP, you know, we've been talking a lot, you know, getting ready for the smoke pit because there's a lot of issues that we want to cover that comes from our community. You know, that's the whole thing now. Everybody's a community. That, you know, when I joined the Army, my expectations and, you know, the fantasy I had was I'm old. I grew up G.I. Joe, the great American hero. I'm going to show up looking like G.I. Joe. Ended up more looking like damn Gomer Pyle, You know, but in my react or in my brain, damn, you know, I say, yeah, no. But, you know, but I'm
Well,
thinking,
we
you know,
all like
join the army,
Gomer Pyle, so that's good.
but I'm talking about like the physical stance or whatever. And it's like, you know, what you think you look like and what you actually look like. It's like, you know, I'm here, I'm camouflage head to toe. You know, I'm the American, you know, whatever. And you turn around, you look, and you're looking like all fucked up.
Are there areas of your life that you feel that you control or that you want to control?
Now that I'm feeling better, I am starting to take a lot more of my control back that I could not do being physically ill. And now, you know, I'm getting all the school lined back out. I'm getting my son after we spoke. You know, I said, you know, I started thinking, and that was some, you know, sometimes, you know, I always said the best friend can bring you back to reality out of a fantasy thing. And I had to, you know, after our conversation, you know, I said, you know, if something does happen to me, I'm his last line of defense. And if I'm gone, he don't have no safety net. You know, well, he's 20 years old, you know, ladies, he's up for adoption. He's real smart, but he works hard and he listens sometimes.
And he's
So,
cute. Yeah.
yeah. And well, like I said, yeah, and I'm really proud of him. I got him up today and he said, I don't feel good. I said, don't give a shit. You're still going to work. Get in the van.
Well,
And,
I mean, that's
you know,
with anxiety, because I know you have anxiety as well. Do you find that sometimes
oh, yeah.
your anxiety controls you? And if you did have a fantasy, like in your life, is there still things like from a guy point of view? And I'm coming to Jason next, which I know is going to be, it's going to be interesting. But it's like from a fantasy point of view, is there still things that you go, oh, how can I put this? I'm just trying to think how to put this. What do you fantasize over? I mean, I'll come to all of you and ask that. What are your fantasies?
Oh, well, you know, guys are built different from women, and that's one of the reasons I enjoy coming on Wicked Women with you and promoting it. Because the male brain is a whole lot different than the female brain. You know, a lot of the cartoons you see is like, oh, what is he thinking about? He's thinking about cheating on me, and he's thinking about, hey, what can I do to make my car go faster? You know, damn, why do I have a dead spot from dog pee in my yard? What can I do to fix my yard? Men fantasize about cars, you know, and you know, just weird shit. Oh, I need a better pew pew that shoots more rounds per minute, you know. And I'm not saying, you know, and your fantasies kind of adapted with age. When I was 20 years old, I had the same fantasies. I want 90 women, you know, that's subservient to me. I want my own harem and all this stuff. But then when you get older, you realize it's hard to put up with one, much less 90 of them. Then you figure out they all sync their cycle. Then you live in a teepee out in the woods because you can't go in their house. But, you know, like I said, I think your fantasies evolve with age. And, you know, not saying that they're not a fantasy, but you have a whole different pool of knowledge that you have acquired over a certain, you know, years. And you're thinking, well, maybe 90 is a bit much. Maybe I'll settle with 10.
In your lifetime, and you know, Jason, do you find that you have areas of your life where you look back and go, that was just a fantasy, or you know, I need to control that area, or you know, I'm touching on these three things, and it was like, because they're all very important. We, not just our sex lives where we fantasize about this, that, the other, or the games that we play. But in my promo, it actually says, do you role play? Or actually, is that your true inner self coming out? And would you say in your life that you have had that, you know, it's the true you that's coming out, or are you kind of doing a role play as well?
Actually, pretty interesting going on there. So as an ADHD kid, self-admitted, you know, I am this, and not shy about it. One of the things that we struggle with is imposter syndrome, where, you know, you're in a position, but do you really deserve this position? Are you really capable of doing these things? Or, you know, did you really accomplish all of that? And that's kind of a constant struggle. You know, I think in a way, because of that, I'm always in a slight state of role play,
Uh-oh.
if you will,
Really?
because I have to struggle with
Lost her.
thoughts. I have to struggle with those ideas,
Where'd they go?
and it's it can be quite exhausting. You're not necessarily being in an environment where you can really feel yourself.
So you feel like you're playing a role? What's expected of you?
It's more like, you know, it's when I say you're role playing, it's almost like you're role playing to a certain extent constantly. You're with the imposter syndrome, so to speak. You're doing this, you're living and existing in this, but you know, it's that thing of, it's the questioning. Am I really this? Am I really this good? Am I really qualified? Am I really capable? So, you know, you're kind of mentally at war with yourself the entire time, having to be like, hold on, wait a minute, dude. Yeah, okay, look, it gets a little interesting at times trying to keep up with stuff, but you know, you took a route clearance maintenance program from a 73% readiness rate to a 93% readiness rate. You've managed millions of dollars worth of equipment. You have managed people. You have gone to these places and have done these things. Why do you think for 1 second that you can't accomplish this, or you can't get up to speed with this? A little bit of that struggle.
And what about in your, I'm trying to, from a sexual point of view, do you find that you've role play has played a part in that sort of area of your life? Is it something that you'd be into?
Joel, if you dress up like Captain Kirk or John Luke or
yeah, right. Yeah, you know what? That's one of those things, and it's going to sound boring, I am sure, but you know, role play is not really something that has been a huge thing for me. If there's somebody who wants to explore it, whatever.
What, no Sean Connery in the bedroom? That is a disappointment.
Well, you know, typically but that's one of the things is I don't need to alter my reality.
Yeah.
I appreciate my reality and my existence how it is. Like, you know, people who do various forms of escapism through chemistry, you know, and things like that. It's like, look, man, I don't need to trip. Life is real enough. Life is crazy enough. If you just take a minute to look around, you don't need anything else altering it. And, you know, just living my own life is quite literally enough. That doesn't mean I'm not open to something. That doesn't mean that I'm not willing to explore something. It just means that I don't feel the need to inject some level of fantasy into things. Life's good enough as it is. The real experiences of everything is amazing enough as it is.
Interesting way of looking at things. For me, it's like I've always had, you know, role play. I'm it's one of those things, isn't it, that you know, you don't realize when you're growing up, there's so many, you're like an onion. There's so many different layers coming off you as we get older. You know, as the comments have said, you know, our fantasies are very different. We become different people, and our fantasies of what we want. Like, I'm going to get this big house. I fantasize about having a great husband, the white picket fence. You know, I fantasize about all this. In reality, you know. And I think it's very important that you strive for your dreams in every single area that you can, but there's also coming to terms with, as Michael said, you know, expectations and fantasizing, I'm going to have this is going to happen, but actually in reality, it's like this. And sometimes the fantasy is far nicer thought of than actually our reality is, because our reality can really, really suck. I'm going to get dizzy if you keep doing that. And then role play is very, very important because it teaches us about experimentation. It teaches us different levels of who we are. For instance, you know, I'm quite a strong personality. I'm quite a dominant personality.
No.
Very hard to be submissive.
No. All this time, I've thought you've just been very, very
Don't
timid,
give it away.
very,
Don't
very kind of,
But
shy.
you'd be surprised. I have my submissive and vulnerable parts of me that if you're really close to me, you will see them. And if you,
Oh, we all do.
if you
We all
don't,
do.
but I enjoy
Oh,
that
wow.
power, the power of being, especially when it comes to like in the bedroom, the power of being in control. And to have how can I use this example? You're dating someone, they're very, very businesslike, they're in control of a lot of things, they never drop any of the balls, pardon the pun, they're always juggling.
Hey, that goes back to Scotty's show. We figured out the Irish have a real problem with sitting on their balls.
Keep
They're
going.
always juggling, right? They're always
You're doing great, Wendy. Keep going. Keep going.
they're juggling, right? They're trying to keep all the balls in the air, right? But in the
Juggling your
bedroom,
balls.
they like to give up control. They want to be submissive. They want to give their control to someone else, right?
And you know what? That actually, you bring up a really interesting point. And it's something that I've experienced firsthand. When you're in a leadership position constantly, you're the one calling the shots, you're the one making the decisions, you're doing all that stuff. You absolutely do want to be able to come home to your partner, significant other, or whatever,
Mhm.
and literally you walk in the
Let it
door
go.
and just lay that burden down and not be in that position anymore. And for me, since given the topic, we always tap dance around or go barreling straight through. The one of the things for me is like I like it when a woman initiates. Now, does that mean I won't do something to take control or whatever, or take a more dominant role during things? No. But the decision making, that initial, like, we're gonna whatever,
Yeah.
that's really nice, because now I'm not having to lead everything.
Mm.
There's a little bit of that burden off of me, and I can relax and become more comfortable, and somebody else is giving the orders, so I don't have to think for a change, which is a really bad way of simplifying it, but it's
I got
Well,
one for you, Jane. I'll help you out here. Sometimes he said it's better to give than it's better to receive than give.
Mhm.
But no, and I get that. And me and Wendy's had these conversations, and I have went from being so in charge, and it still happens in my day-to-day life. It seems like if I don't run shit, or people don't lean on me, that shit goes to shit real quick. And I would rather deal with it now while it's a little shit pile than before it turns into a big shit pile. And and me and hers had this conversation before, and it would feel good to be able to go in and say, hey, you make the decisions, you do this. But I've also told these guys who say, I'm a ladies' man, I make shit happen, I'll talk her right out of her knickers or whatever, and I will straight up tell them, and the ladies can respond if I'm wrong. I always say, if the bra and panty sets match, it wasn't your ideal. and a lot of women, and like I said, and it is a power dynamic, because at the end of the day, she controls what you're going to get or receive, or how your night is going to go. It don't matter if you spend $3 on lunch or $3,000 on lunch. If you're not in her head and make her want to, so women do have the power dynamic to say, yes, you're getting lucky, or no, you're not. And
that's something that's really, you touch on something kind of interesting there, and I'm probably going to get daggers stared at me through the camera things. But when I hear people talk about how, like, women are the weaker sex, all of those tropes that go with that kind of mindset of women not being in any sort of power, men have all the power, this is da 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 da, and it's like, you don't realize and understand the power that you do have, and that it is immense. absolutely immense because it's the power of psychology and physiology, where behind every great emperor, king, general on the battlefield, all of the monuments men of history, if you will, there's been a very powerful woman in some regard behind them, either pulling the strings, either encouraging or pushing them on or whatever. And that can make or break a guy. Like the level of psychological damage that can be done to a man by a woman.
Well, is it the power behind the throne, isn't it? Behind every good man is a really strong woman.
Right.
And I think Sarah comes up with that good point. I just want to pick this up. In dom and sub relationships, the sub has most of the power.
Yes, exactly.
Sub allows the dom to it's like someone, if I want to be submissive,
the sub gives the illusion of control.
If I want to be submissive, it's like I relinquish my dominance to you, but I allow and choose the levels of submissive that I become to. I'm still in charge in lots of ways, but I'm still holding on to that level of submission. And it's the same with this. If you have a sub and you're the dominant one, they will allow you to whatever layers. I mean, we're not talking toxic where someone just takes what they want and does what they want and you no say all over it. Okay. I think it's a very good dynamic to have in the bedroom. And what about if you're in a relationship though, and you have, like, I remember, as I said, this particular scenario, this gentleman was like wanting to hand over control. I make decisions every day at work. I've got people charging everything and that lot. It's really good to actually give my power over. I'm always in charge in relationships. I'm always in charge. I'm always in charge in the bedroom. I have to sort everything else. I want to relinquish it. And I thought, that's the sort of person that as a dominant, you actually think, I could really get behind that, because you can bring out, the submission and see the relief of relinquishing it. Because some people, I find it very hard to let go of control, because I've become vulnerable, and by becoming vulnerable, that person can hurt me. So I keep a wall up. And with that wall, I allow you to come down. I allow you to lower my wall to a set point where I show you something. Now, Michael's known me quite a long time, and using this example, he's seen me sick and upset and all kinds of things. So he's seen my vulnerability, and he's seen my wall down. But if you don't see that side to me, you see this very confident, strong woman, but underneath that is also a woman who's actually like learnt through life that unless you keep that protection up, you get hurt. So the dominant character, I wouldn't walk over anyone or anything like that, but being strong, being confident, being in control makes me feel safe.
Right. Taking it back to like the dominant or whatever. And like I said, and if I go too far, just let me know. Like I said, but you told me a lot of the dominant issues that you've had was coming out of a shitty relationship, and you said never again. Now you get to mess with dominant Wendy. I'm nobody's stepping stone. I'm nobody's. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to say.
Doormat. Well, I mean, if you want to use that as a word.
I was going to say the other like punching, but whatever, and a lot of times, and I saw that with my mom. One day, the shit she went through. Well, both my parents are now passed, so and I'm not saying anything that nobody don't know. But one day, I seen the power dynamic swap in my house growing up, and it went from "I'm not your punching bag no more. I'm tired of being treated like shit." Now you dealt with what you built, and and that poor little woman was like 5'5", 120 pounds, but she knew that there was equalizers that she could employ. And I'm like, okay. So, and a lot of times their fantasy and reality, you might dream of growing up. I know there was a lot of wannabe 50 Shades of Grey thing. Oh, crumble cookies. You asshole. I forgot to eat today. Now he's going to eat a donut. I'm sitting here drinking Pepsi.
Oh, really? He's getting the fantasy out now. Look.
Yeah, it's the other fantasy cookie. Let me get this. But anyway,
Yeah, we
yeah,
can smell it from here, hon.
that's it. And but like I said, but with the age, like I said, it comes with it. And like I said, and the trials and tribulations that we go through in life, it turns you a certain way. Watching, yeah. Just hold
Oh
him up
my.
like this so you get
I'm going to take the one on the left,
first
to
one.
be honest.
So yeah,
Which one's
you
the
get
one on the
older,
left?
as you
Because
get older,
my
you
camera could be
learn to.
reversed.
Yeah, it looks like a nipple.
Um,
This is Black Forest. This is a Wonka.
Yeah.
They're not
It's
the
the one with the cherry on top.
Well, since I'm a defiant sort, I'm going with Black Forest.
Yeah, the one with the
I
nipple on it.
Hey, I got Black Forest. Actually, no. Yes, is it Black Forest cake cheesecake? I got.
Yeah.
Colleen, do you feel like in and putting you on the spot here, when it comes to in the bedroom, would you say that it comes naturally to you to be more dominant or more submissive, or is it equal?
Gosh, I used to be, quite frankly, had not a clue. I mean, my first boyfriend, I was 18 years old. So I didn't know a heck of a lot. That's probably why our marriage didn't last. Now it's kind of shared. Like, you know what? If I want it, you're in trouble if you don't. Sorry, but you know what? If I'm in that kind of mood, you're not. Watch out, because.
Do you chase him around the bedroom then and a big stick or something?
I haven't done that, but I will admit it's like, you know what? You're not in the mood. I am.
Yeah.
I'll have no premonition in putting a DVD in the player and say, you know what? Now you're in the mood, dear.
Oh my goodness,
Hey,
that's.
But that goes back to visual and
I got to the point when I walked away
As
from
you
my
get a certain
last
age,
husband.
you
I was
just tell
married
people
to him
what you
almost
want.
24 years. The first year or two, for actually not even that much, I'm actually lying. The first 6 months might have been good, and he was, and only to find out later that he was cheating from day one, and very abusive. And when I walked away, I said, we're not doing this again. We're not putting myself in that position again. I didn't with my husband. The husband I got now, he's wonderful. He's great. But oh my God, Michael, thank you for saying yes. I finally packed up and said, you know what? I want to live my life. We are moving. I got blasted yet again today by his mother. And let me tell you, I let all guns fly. I said, you know what? Told her, you are the reason we moved. You are one of the reasons that we moved.
Yeah, that's a common kind of thing though with stuff like that. The negative reaction to someone wanting to move. I've seen that plenty of times in my own personal life, and I've heard the horror stories from my own parents about how
Yeah. Well, it's his mother that's laying the guilt trip, and she was downright nasty to me today. And I said, you know what? I kept it from her because she's an older woman. She's not in great health. So actually, I think she's going to outlive me, truth be told. And so, yeah, I'm becoming more dominant. It's hard. Of course, I learn you respect your elders. So when I talk back to her, that caused my anxiety. So as I said in the beginning, it's hard. I'm trying to be tough as nails, but you know what? There's still that side that never gonna learn.
Would you say that you're standing in your power now, Colleen? Now that you've moved, would you say that you're now standing in your power finally?
I've been doing really good, and the shock is, and not just his mother. I don't know. There was some connection apparently with my grandmother, and I think probably because she spoke with my father, and I haven't spoke with him in years. Don't intend to. He was another one that allowed for abuse and atrocities to happen to both me and my sister. So when she passed, suddenly my anxiety, my panic was so much better. But talking back to his mother today set it off again. So she still holds power over me, unfortunately.
Yeah, see,
You
that's
know,
the thing, isn't it? Like the dominant, is she a dominant character or manipulative? Obviously very manipulative, but dominant. Is she very strong?
No, she just likes guilt tripping him, and when she can't get through to him, she goes after me, and I'm in the mindset. I lived with this guy almost 20, we were married almost 24 years. And when I finally left him, I could not use my left arm at all. I could not move my left arm at all. I faced the barrel of a gun one day. You know what? And when I walked away, I'm like, this ain't happening again. So it puts me back there. So, as far as dominance, yeah, I try and inflict it, but I'm still that pushover.
Well, Jason, for anyone who fantasizes about watching you eat a cake, you're certainly doing that tonight because, we're watching you eat.
Look, it's either I eat this crumble cookie in front of you guys and effectively torture you with it because crumble cookies are really good.
What are crumble cookies?
Or it's a brand. They're like a chain bakery, cookie bakery kind of thing, confectionery, I guess you'd call it. But
okay.
I bring up this example
what
because my ex-husband, he led me to believe he was one set way of a character. He was this person. It was going to be like this. It was going to be like that, and it was all a fantasy. None of it was real. And I think that was a shock to me to discover 8 months after my marriage had gone through that I actually had married what I thought was real was actually not real. It was a fantasy, and what was real was very, very small. And I think that once you get rid of that, and there are two different things: the fantasy and reality in our life, and the sexual side of fantasy reality as well. But in your lifetime, when you actually have no option but to realize that your life wasn't real, not your fantasy, like he wasn't fulfilling a fantasy in that way, Colleen. He was, what I'm saying, his life was a fantasy. He put it out. I'm like this, it's going to be like this, it's all going to happen, and it turned out to be nothing like that. It wasn't even real.
It goes back to the land of make-believe, and that's what I say right now. What hurts a lot of people in their relationships when it comes to like love and fantasy and all that stuff is multimedia. It's like me and JP was talking about the other day. Everything is so interconnected now. Everything is at a touch of a button. You have instant gratification. And for years, Disney made tons of money by saying, look, every little girl is a princess, every guy's a prince. Your prince might not be a prince. He might be a retard with a temple hat, and, he's not Prince Charming, and people have learned, like Jason said, they have learned to clone shit they see on TV. They project that outward and make you believe, and people have got really good at manipulating. And that's why I say, you're talking about fantasy and reality. You see all these pictures that these women and men both put like on Instagram and all that. And it's basically clickbait. They're all very heavily photoshopped. They have a professional person sitting on there. Oh man, watch him. You could almost make a commercial for the cookie crumble thing.
Oh my goodness. Are you doing like, eating slowly and getting all the crumbs down and everything?
Yeah. You brush it out of your beard there. You
some cookies, man. I can't waste a single crumb.
No. But and that's what I'm saying. People have
about you, Jason.
Hey, we'll give you his PO box so all y'all ladies can send him homemade cookies.
Oh Lord,
I'm making cookies Tuesday.
My waistline doesn't need that. My vintage clothing wardrobe does not need that.
Steph comes up with a point that you work at a marriage, you don't walk away. And absolutely, I was married for 6 years and I worked really hard, but it was always a fantasy. I remember, he would come up with something like once a week it would be date night, it would be cuddle night, it would be hug night. None of that ever happened. None of it ever achieved. It was all a lie. And then you have to really come to a point and realize that what you're living is actually a lie, a fantasy. I think Jason needs to post some of those cookies to the UK. I think so too. Don't you, Jason?
No, you're talking about posting.
I don't know if they've
candy.
survived
That-
the journey across the pond.
I think
Oh.
if you wrap them very well, they might do.
Matter of fact, talk about weird stuff. We had to run to Walmart because I had to get a third bookcase. I'm trying to set up my house. Wendy, I looked for your bake pan there, and they didn't have it at that store.
But you do have the cookie jar, right? Speaking of cookies, you do have.
Yes, I've got to get that to you, Michael, so you can ship it to her. It's in my spare room, and I can actually, almost get to it. Almost get
I
to
hope
it.
it makes
One of these days, I'll hop in my car and I'll drive the 5 hours up and 5 hours back.
So I'm
The
going
one
to ask,
thing,
like Michael, if you had a fantasy woman, and I'm going to use this as a fantasy. We all have a fantasy. We all have an image that we're drawn to, that we find attractive. And I think we have a blueprint, and sometimes that can be half fantasy, half real. Is there a type of woman that you're drawn to that is your fantasy type of woman?
oh Lord,
On the spot.
NCIS.
Don't prepare yourself.
Zeba. Zeba from NCIS. Mossad, beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. It was like, yep, good pick, right? Everybody's like, oh, you want Wonder Woman? No, I don't want no woman with a truth lasso. Zeba, trained assassin, Mossad. Gorgeous, you know what I'm saying? Intelligent, you know what I'm saying? Knows how to handle a weapon. Hey, if you accidentally, you go down from whatever, she's got your back, she's going to pick up your weapon and go to work. And everybody's like, oh, don't you want the little schoolgirl, whatever type? No, that's not my cup of tea. But, I'm saying, the strong woman that knows how to handle herself in all situations. And you want one that can transition from, like, wearing your cargo pants in the desert to putting on a ballroom gown, and it's a lady. And it goes back to what that running joke used to be. You want a lady in the street and a freak in the sheets. And it's the same thing. I want one that's combat proficient, in the battle zone, and you can and go to a 5-star restaurant later. Oh, she said heat feather in the Knight's Tale or Brad Pitt's.
Blonde. She likes some blonde. Jason, who is your fantasy?
Jason's like, goddamn, that's a good one.
No, it's actually probably a lot, like we're talking like the ideal woman kind of thing, right? Outlander. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, somebody just made a comment about Outlander.
Yeah,
that's enough. What's my fantasy woman? My ideal fantasy woman?
Yeah.
Betty Crocker. No.
No. Somebody who is intelligent, can hold their own in a conversation. Is emotionally intelligent as well, emotionally mature. Someone who I find attractive, and that doesn't have to fit a societal norm. I have run the gamut of body types, of hair colors, of ethnic backgrounds, whatever. It ends up being much more of a mental kind of thing than a physical thing. Now, yes, the physical thing does factor in, I'll be honest. But it's not like, I'm looking for the perfect, 36,
you're looking for
32, whatever, right? It's like I don't have like the archetype of what the perfect woman would be. I mean, like there's too many things scattered in there to make that, and there's too many variances, and I have too many. My tolerances are too loose in terms of, it's more about connection and things like that. I don't have, this strict guideline of things that I go by, and that's just me. I don't care if I
there isn't anyone out there that famous or non-wise that is your fantasy type of woman. This is the woman that would be my fantasy come true.
That's the thing is like I can't pick one. Like I can't sit there and
you can have more than one if you like. We can give you the option of 2 or 3.
Tell you what, give me some Donna Reed.
I was going to say, what was the lady off of Friends? Jennifer Anderson, you know,
Jennifer Aniston, yeah.
the
Colleen,
lady
is
Olivia and Lucy.
there someone that would be your fantasy type of guy?
Oh my.
Sam Elliott with the big mustache.
Oh my. Yeah, Sam Elliott isn't bad, but I'd have to say,
Tom
going
Selleck.
on what you said, Mike. What's his name? The guy there that runs NCIS, not the black dude, the old man there.
Oh, you're talking about Jethro Gibbs.
Yes, thank you.
Mark. What's his name? Mark.
I'm sorry, but that guy is. I have this thing for older guys. I don't know why, but always have. Like I
Attracted to
said,
the
I mean,
maturity.
it was Tom Selleck. It was when Bonanza was on. It was the old man that wasn't one of the boys. It's like,
Bob Cartwright.
oh, of course. But you got to remember, I was like probably 16, 17. Why I found older men more distinguished and whatever is beyond me. But after being burned by a bad one, but yeah, I mean,
They say, hey, if there's
yeah.
snow on the roof, what is it? They say, bar in the bowler, snow on the roof or something. I can't remember. JP probably knows that better than I. They say if you got snow on the roof, you got bar in the bowler or something. I don't know.
Fantasy, so
I don't know, there's something about they're so much more distinguished. I mean, my husband now, he's only 2 years older than me. He's awesome. He's great. We've been through a lot. We're working on it. We both decided at the same time, it's time to get away from what's causing the issues.
Mhm.
And we're happy and comfortable. But yeah, I mean, I've been watching NCIS and I'm like, yeah, he's still kind of.
the thing is though, like even though you can be with a partner, I think it's good to be, as long as you both agree to it and you're both comfortable with it, it's good to bring your partner's fantasies to life. If there's something you both want in the bedroom and in the lifetime. I mean, if it's not your kind of thing to swing from the chandelier and stuff like that, and you're not going to do it. But I think it's good to cover each other's fantasies. For me, I never realized I had a type until I got a lot older, and I was like, oh yeah, there's something about the eyes, each different, obviously. But I always had he's got to be tall, he's got to be dark, he's got to have a beard, he's got to have that. I don't know, he's quite broad, and I sort of looked at the guys over the years that I thought were attractive. Obviously, it started with Alec Baldwin. Antonio Banderas, for some reason, really floated my boat.
Yes, the guy who sells flonase.
I got away from the guys in beards. My father and my ex, who I
what's his name?
despise to this day, all had beards, and I'm like, yeah, no, we're getting away from the beards.
I never used to like a guy with beards, but then I do. But Alexander Skarsgård, who's completely different to my.
Well, Mike. Sorry.
She got one of her types. Must love dogs. Must be good at your dogs. If you're shit to your dogs.
Yep.
That's with anybody. You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat their dog.
But
or any animal, whether it be dogs or cats. Yeah.
Wendy can tell you what that dog name.
Do we have a sexual fantasy that we?
Hey, Wendy, they want to know what that dog's name was that popped up.
Poseidon. That was Poseidon. Do we have?
Yeah, that was Poseidon. Where's the queen?
Yeah. She's around. I'm just looking at this older men. Let me see this here. Older men.
Oh, she'll be in here in a minute.
In maturity, it seems like
maybe
cultural men nowadays are not gentlemen with codes anymore. But do you have sexual fantasies, Jason, that you still haven't achieved?
Remember, Legos do not go there.
Probably.
That's an interesting one for me, actually. Are there things that I have done in that realm? Yes, but there's also lessons learned in the experiencing of things, and you kind of get to this thing where it's like, you know what? There's some things where nice to have a fantasy about, not worth actually making come to fruition. Like, unless, an asteroid's about to hit the planet and you got like 4 hours to live, then I guess it's kind of,
Kind of
not
a moot
far.
point.
Right. But, in the reality of things, it's like every experience you have shapes you and changes you and gives you a different perspective on stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's a nice thing to kind of fantasize about. But in practice, no, I really don't think I'd want to.
I know what you mean, because
trash cans.
Thank you.
my ex-husband literally, he always said this thing about threesomes, like, oh, would you sleep with her? Is she really attractive? Do you really want her? And I'd be like, no, and all this. And it's like, and then he said to me one day, you know what? I think the fantasy was actually better than if we were to do it in reality, because it would change the dynamics between us. And it was, and I think it's better to keep it. So I think there are some things in life you should keep as fantasy, and maybe keep them private. I mean, we don't always have to share our fantasies. We can keep them. We can keep them private.
Well, there's some things that, if you are in a relationship versus if you are a single person. Going back to something like a threesome, you look at the intrapersonal dynamics that can happen there and how things can change. Like, if you're a single guy or gal and you engage in something like that with other single guys and gals, you don't have to worry about, gonna get awkward now. Like, you're not sitting there having to worry about so now every time we go and, or just doing it by ourselves, is she thinking about him, or like thinking about her instead of me, like all of that stuff, the things that play on the insecurities. And
that went quick. You went to the devil's threesome to start out with.
Huh?
Most fantasies men have are a man and two women. You went to the one with a man with two, or a woman with two men. The devil's threesome, as we call it.
Look, why can't a woman have the same kind of, guys are like, man, what was it in Office Space where he's like, if you had $1 million, what would you do?
Yeah.
Two chicks at the same time, man. Like, guys can have that. Why can't women have the same kind of thing? So it's just,
I'm glad that you can bring that up, because they was talking about.
I'm comfortable enough in my own masculinity and sexuality to bring it up, so whatever.
No, like most of the time it's me beating that drum, and it feels good to have somebody else to help beat that drum, because I remember I thought I was going to get death threats and hate mail one night because they was talking about organized religion and men could have as many wives as they could financially afford. I said, well, why can't women have as many husbands as they could put up with or financially afford? And you want to talk about getting some hate? I got a lot of hate. Like I said, I was teasing you about it because most of the time it's me on the receiving end of all the shit when I say something like that. But, that's what I told him. I said, and I don't know if women would really fantasize like guys, because like I said, the brains are built different.
They are, but, there's a lot of things that are more similar than people probably realize. And a lot of that isn't necessarily wiring as much as it is societal and cultural construct, and kind of the programming that happens from that, with expectations towards things, etc. How your environment impacts, whatever. Because look, guys can be just as romantic, or just as just as passionate, just as lustful as women can, and women can be just as romantic and passionate and lustful as men can. May it be different things that trigger the responses, sure, but we're both capable of the same things. We all technically have the same, basal computer parts.
Pheromone.
You still have sexual fantasies, Michael, that you wish to achieve?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He's very genuinely like that. He's like, oh yeah.
I'm 51 years old. I always told him the way I live my life, I'm not here for a long time, but goddamn it, I want to have a good time. And and like I said, me and Wendy's had this conversation before. Like I said, like I said the other day, you've never been interrogated till you've been interrogated by a British therapist. They will get the knowledge out they want to know. I had a wife.
All right, I'm booking a session because I got issues I got to deal with.
Oh Lord. Bring your
Book a
teapot.
session, darling. Book a session.
Yeah. Bring your teapot. But like
That's
I said,
easy. I've got two on the stove, so we're fine.
Yeah,
I've got a teapot.
But do you find, Michael, that when you did achieve some of your fantasies that you had, did it tick all those boxes, or did it leave you thinking, well, it wasn't as the fantasy was better than the reality?
like I said, you know, because I told you about the wife, and we both had a girlfriend. And when you travel in the Bible Belt of the South, they say, "Oh, you need 2 rooms." No, we need 1 room. Oh, you need 2 beds. No, 1 bed. And it's like these people, you know, and different things are taboo. That's what I was thinking about. And I wrote it down here. Taboo. What it might not be taboo for me might be taboo for one of y'all. And
The Bible Belt
And
is a
it-
great place for those kinds of things.
yeah, and it's like, you know,
But did you find it was the reality was better than the fantasy, or the fantasy was better?
yeah. I don't know. That's hard to, because that they always say, but that's a lot of work, and to make your fantasies or your dreams come true is a lot of work. There's nothing in life free. Either you're gonna pay for it with emotional damage or whatever, and we've talked about that. And you know, and the older you get, the more you realize I'm not built for that fantasy no more. Can I handle 10 women? You know, 10 plus me? Probably not. I'd die of a heart attack. They said, well, you know, he came and he went. But you know, so you got to look at things with reality, and a lot of times I think it's shock value. Hey, that's it. Yeah, give them the sign off.
But did you find that and I'm going to ask that question again. I want an answer, yes or no. Did you find that reality was better than the fantasy, or the fantasy was better?
At first, it was like, holy fuck, this is happening. This is going to be pretty cool.
Sounds good.
But then after you do it, you know, it's always like if you got 1 piece of candy, now you got 2 pieces of candy. The next thing up is 3 pieces of candy, and the endorphins in your body. You're thinking, you know, when you first have it, you know, all that a rush of emotion and hormones and everything, you know, you're really, really keyed up. Then after it's done, you know, you come down like you come off a high. So to get that same high again, you have to up the ante. And I think a lot of these things now with people, they have done so much crazy shit in their life. The only way they get that same feeling is by increasing the wow factor, I guess, to say it nicely, or the kink factor. And I tell people, you know, what you do behind closed doors should be nobody's business. If you want to go around,
you would say, because I've pushed the point, was it better or was it the same? What was it, yes or no? Did you prefer the fantasy or did you prefer the reality?
Oh, the reality was pretty good because it's actually happening. The fantasy, you're wanking off in the dark, crying yourself to sleep, and the reality was, the reality was better than the fantasy. You know, there was 2 women laying there. You know, in the fantasy, you know, you're fantasizing taking care of yourself. So I'd have to say yes. The reality when it happened was better than the fantasy because you actually have somebody else to participate with.
Colleen, would you in the same boat? I mean, do you find that? Do you still have fantasies that you in the bedroom and etc. that you want to achieve that you haven't done yet?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there one that you just springs to mind that you think, yeah, that we can achieve that, or that might need a bit of work?
Most of them are pretty mild, but you know, we've achieved a few things, and it's like, yeah, okay, that was not bad.
I'll tell you the one fantasy that really broke my heart. I was like, oh, you need to go to a nudist colony. The people you want to see naked are not the people who want to get naked. You want to talk about something that kills your fantasy really quick.
Now I thought of that. It's like, oh gosh, it'd be, let's go to a nude beach. There's got to be one around here somewhere. And I'm like, yeah.
It's like European nude beaches.
Yeah.
No.
Grandpa, 108 years old.
European ones, right?
It would be like going to Old Orchard Beach and having the Canadian guys that weigh 350 pounds come down and have on their G-string. And I'm like, oh my God, that's scary.
Our fantasy for both.
I mean, for instance, like I don't know if I ever had a particular fantasy. I did think about the two guys scenarios when I was in my 30s. I really did think about that, because I think it's something that us girls, we talk about. Could we have two guys? And then I actually thought about it and I thought, hang on a minute, that, I'm
That's a
not
lot of
sure
work.
give control over to anyone else. And it's something I never did. I never went down that road. It wasn't something that I just didn't want, the fantasy was better than the reality if I was going to do that scenario. But I think also the dominant side to me, looking at the dominant and submissive, the dominant side to me is something that came as I got older. And I actually started around when I was 19, I met someone who really was very submissive and encouraged me to be more dominant. And I was like, I had no idea, no clue about what it involved, no clue about the sub-dom relationship. No one teaches you these things when you're young.
No.
No one talks about it. Your mum doesn't have to talk with you about anything. Nobody does. You don't know. You're trying to and especially in our generations going back, it wasn't so talked about. It wasn't open about. So you didn't know what was going on. So to suddenly be in that position to meet this person who was like encouraging you to, and almost not worshiping you, that's the wrong point, but really enjoying the fact that they're bringing out this side to you. You actually think, well, they're getting something from it, and now I'm getting something from it. And I think that other relationships have happened in life that bring out, you can't always be the dominant with that person, not because they won't allow it, but it doesn't feel right. You've got to have those dynamics with that person. The dynamics between you has got to be, this is someone that I can be submissive with. This is someone that I can be dominant with. And some people just don't bring that out. Do you know what I mean, Jason? Like some people just don't bring out that side to you.
Yeah. No, that's true. Some people just don't. Some people do. And a lot of that depends on the chemistry that you have with that person, which can also be a dangerous thing, because sometimes you can have really good chemistry with the wrong person.
Very,
And,
very, very.
Oh, definitely.
It can have extremely long-term detrimental impacts.
I've seen some people that could put out any kind of flame you had. It's almost, there's a wet blanket on everything. Well, let's go try this. What's wrong with you? You fucking sick? What do you want to try that for? And, it's almost like they bring the Debbie Downer energy into any fantasy versus any reality. And they just suck all the fun out of it. So eventually, if they do agree to do it or whatever, you come to that understanding as two consenting adults. It's like, well, goddamn, I don't want to do it now. You done killed all the fun. You're a buzzkill. And so, there is that type of people, but chemistry is great.
Chemistry is all about chemistry, because without it, you have
chemistry and pheromones and all that.
Having said
some people.
that, what if someone said to you, Colleen, this is my fantasy. I really want us to do this, and it was something that you potentially had never thought about or never wanted to do. Would you tempt it?
Oh boy. If there's no chemistry, probably not.
But with someone you did have chemistry with and they offered, this is my fantasy, would you
put on the blind.
Hard to say. Like I said, my old self, I would say no. My new self that I'm working on, I'd say, well, you know what? No attachment between you and somebody else. If somebody wasn't going to get hurt, probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
What did Nike say? If it feels good, do it, right? Just do it.
But you know what? If you're involved in a relationship with somebody and you come to somebody and say, oh, well, I want to do this, and they won't do it, or he or she won't do it, vice versa. We're not going to put either male or female, because females are willing to go to a guy and say, hey, you know what? If you're in a relationship, you deal with your relationship. You're not going to go and hop in the sack just to fulfill a fantasy with somebody and potentially hurt somebody at the other end.
I agree with you. And the thing is, if someone came to me and I was dating them and they said, this is my fantasy, and it didn't float my boat, I would not be doing it. That's just me. I just couldn't do it, because if it doesn't feel right, if I don't
Yep.
feel like I've got the tools to do it, I can't do it. And the thing is, if you're not enjoying it, then they're not going to enjoy it, because
Yeah.
as you say, it's got to be the chemistry. And Steph says, chemistry can be like crack and addiction. And when you meet someone, you've got to have, I always say, the 5 C's, which chemistry is one of them. But Jason, have you ever been in that position where someone has said to you, I really want to do this, and you've not been up for it, or it felt like it was out of your league? What have you been there?
Actually, no, I really haven't. But I can say that for me, it's going to depend on what it is, and it's going to depend on how and where my morals, ethics, etc. lie. There's going to be an element of that, and I know this is going to sound like a wet blanket, but I am going to think about what are the second and third order effects.
Yeah.
Because, it could sound really, really hot. It could sound really hot.
Mhm.
But
Do you want to just say that again for the ladies? It could sound
really hot.
So you're saying,
Hey, save that money, Panic. That sounds really hot.
No,
No, but it's
Jason
it
makes a
is.
good point.
Yeah.
He does. He makes a good point, because if you're into voyeurism and you get called outside of a park with your pants down, next thing you know, did it feel good at the time? Was it hot as hell? Probably. But now you're on a fucking list and you can't get a job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
That's kind of that's a little bit different than like, hey, we have this. I mean, unless that's their fantasy. It's like, hey, let's go rub one out in the bushes in front of the window of old, old man so and so and their wife. That'd be hot. Then, okay, yeah, that's that's a situation, I guess, where you could end up with that. But like with fantasies, though, typically, bringing somebody else into it, like I am not typically one who likes my pleasure spiked with pain.
Mhm.
whips and chains
That
and
brings up a
all that
whole new vision there, Jason.
stuff. And all high heels and balls.
That's not my go-to. Do I have people and friends that I know that who are into that? Very much so, and that's their own thing, and that's
That's a
whatever.
good point that Michael brings up, voyeurism, because that can be someone's fantasy to be, and it's not just always exposing yourself, but it's like
The chance to get caught, and that's part of the appeal of that is
Well, that's why
And,
you do it in the car in a car park, or a parking garage. You do that there. Maybe don't stand in the bushes next to the neighbor's house.
but that goes back to what I was saying before. Once you do it in the car park, somebody could walk by, but the chances are low. So if you do it and you get away with it there, you got to up the ante to get that same feeling. And she, it's talking about the chemistry, but the endorphins is also like a drug. I got addicted to adrenaline to the point when I got home, I was taking more and more chances to get the same feeling. And it is a dangerous, slippery slope once you get on it. And I think people who, I got up my pink flamingo today, and I was going to say, pink flamingos and pineapples. And that is a culture that I never understood. I would not want to share my significant other and watch her get run through like yesterday's trash. Am I secure in my masculinity? Sure. But it's just something that I just could never get on board with. And if that was her fantasy, I'd say, well, nice doing business with you. Go find all the dicks you want. It just ain't going to be with me.
Well, that's actually pretty fair. I've been in a relationship with a woman where there was all kinds of fantasies that would get talked about that would not something that would necessarily come to fruition, but the conversation about it during the acts of intimacy and things like that was a boundary we could work within, and was enough. I think that's if there's something that you aren't really comfortable doing with a partner, try to find a way to incorporate it without crossing your line. So you give them a little bit of what they're wanting, so you can tickle that fantasy just a hair and spice things up a bit.
So if they ask you for the chicken, you just bring the feather. All right, I got you. The difference between kinky and perverted is one is with the feather, the other with the whole chicken. I get it.
Well, I mean, I would never do a nude beach. I've got to be honest. I wouldn't do a nude beach. But David says in a relationship, you shouldn't have any other thoughts of other partners. That is true. However, some things can just crop into your head, and some things can remind you.
I was going to say,
Sometimes being with someone can actually bring thoughts back of someone else, and you actually think, hang on a minute, maybe that's actually telling me something. I want to actually bring up about common fantasies here, because we're looking at fantasies. And one of them is to have multi-partner sex. That is actually to go to an orgy, a threesome, group sex, and even gangbangs, right? A lot of people, 95% of men and 87% of women are into the idea of that. They want to, and yet again, that comes into, you've both got to have the trust between it. It's both got to be something you both want to do, because once you go down that road and you change the dynamics, you can't go back. The second one is BDSM, being dominated. We all remember 9.5 Weeks and 50 Shades of Grey. It brings up all kinds of images of kinks and fetishes and tied up and
Eyes Wide
paddles.
Shut.
Exactly. Eyes Wide Shut as well.
I think Eyes Wide Shut was a whole lot better than any of the 50 Shades of Grey. Because the movie
I still think 9.5 Weeks is the absolute best. I think 9.5 Weeks absolutely shows how, if you're both not on the same page, how the dominant sub relationship can really go downhill. But 50 Shades is very, very disappointing. Another one is dominating someone, being in control. 47% of people who are identify as women admit to having had this fantasy. It can be incredibly hot to call the shots, as I well know, during sex, especially in a culture that tries to strip, as it says here, tries to strip minority groups of their power, both in and out of the bedroom. Bondage is another fantasy. Sensory deprivation using blindfolds. That is incredibly powerful. When you're using a blindfold on someone, all your other senses take over: the smell, the touch, the hearing, the taste. And I think that's really important in a sub-dom relationship, is to use all your senses, all of them, and to actually blindfold someone and to bind them is actually a very strong way of actually enhancing, improving your sensory. It's very sexy. It's very sensual. Sarah says, does the want to bring in another partner indicate boredom? Not always necessarily.
Not always, but I don't know. I'm not into that. I'm like, you know what? You want somebody else, you walk away and you go find them.
It's not a boredom thing for me if I have even a thought about that. But that's the thing though, is I will get bored emotionally before I get disappointed physically.
Oh, I know what you mean, Steph. I know what you mean. It's like, for me, to have a really strong masculine guy who's comfortable in his skin and with his masculinity, to have him bound and by his own, his own will, to have him blindfolded, it's just brilliant. It's like, oh my God, I'm in my element now.
You just like the power trip, Wendy. That's all it is. You're just one step away from being a supervillain in a movie.
All I'll say is my husband has a lot of ties.
But for us, it's also the fact that we're perhaps their fantasy to be tied up by a strong woman, right? Do you not agree?
I'm kind of with Jason. I don't want to be whipped and poked and prodded.
No, I don't. Yeah,
and-
don't want to be whipped, but you know what? The tie to the headboard, or you know what?
But like, hold on, let me pull out the giant leather clad wooden paddle
Oh
with the
God,
speed
no.
holes drilled in
No.
it and the giant A. You know, like, nah,
But,
man.
but believe it or not, shocking as it's been working where I work, it's like the stuff I've been pulling for people. I'm like, are you kidding me?
But hang on a second, you're automatically thinking that because if a man is bound and tied and blindfolded by a woman, she's obviously going to do things to him like whipping and using other stuff. It's not about that. It's about the fact that when you're blindfolded, when you're tied up, you can use all your other sensories. We bring pleasure by touch, by taste, by
Right.
hearing something.
That's one thing, but that's one of those things that when you look at things like that, right, and instances like that, I think that most people who don't actually have even a cursory knowledge of BDSM and things like that, they don't probably associate what you just described with some level of submission. You know, they probably categorize it as something else. It just because of lack of knowledge and then societal constructs and things that have been put out there, and people will probably more likely gravitate towards the, why is it when I bring tying guy up, you're automatically thinking that you're going to start like poking and whipping and beating and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, that's kind of the societal programming, right, wrong, or indifferent. And quite frankly, there's a level of heightened anxiety that could come from being restrained. And that's kind of with anybody, depending on how you go into the situation, obviously.
You wouldn't do that to someone if you knew it brought up anxiety, and this would be something that you would talk about with them, right, before said thing happens. You don't just want to find someone and them going, oh my God, because that's just not what it's about. It's not about wanting to bring fear and anxiety into the bedroom. It's wanting to bring in pleasure, and they are up for that, because I wouldn't bind or blindfold anybody that to bring in.
She said, I will find you.
I know.
No one wending to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. No.
Yeah, but the whole thing with this, I'm seeing a lot of people like, oh, what happened to one-on-one, and I got a message that said, it's hard to relate. And the one thing we should have said today when we first started the show, please tell everybody your safe word so we can use it. If you ever feel uncomfortable, just let us know. What is your safe word? And I just thought that because I'm reading some of the message, can trigger, and I see Sarah said, can trigger PTSD. If I'm with a woman and she's beating my ass that hard that I have a PTS flashback of being waterboarded in training or whatever, But the funniest thing, and Jason has probably saw this, Bet TV, the dart or whatever, and the woman said, and this is going to be crude, and I know we need to like it. And they asked that girl, said basically, what are your fantasies? What do you want to do with them? She looks them straight now. She said, I want to waterboard all of them with my pussy. And that's what a lot of the vets or whatever think of. And I'm thinking, what puts a woman in that kind of mindset that says, hey, this is what's going to happen? And it just wasn't one or two or three. They said, why are you chasing all these young Marines or whatever it was? And that's basically, they cornered her, and she said, and I'm thinking, that is a strong, dominant woman. She knows what she wants and how she's going to get.
But Michael, to bring up this point, women for so many years, and we're talking decades here, have always the same live air and think of England, right? Have been very submissive to their men's wants and needs and their husbands. It was almost pre put in our heads as youngsters, and we're going back to my mother's generation and her mother's generation. So women now are in that point of view of life that they can take control. They are experiencing, they are exploring, they are coming comfortable in their own power. because for years women have almost got to a point of where we got to like not shut up and put up, but it's kind of like lie there, darling. Think of England. You know, it was
good
all
country,
about
you know.
the man's pleasure.
And,
You know, it's true.
But if you think about it, in
Think of
different
England.
societies,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know,
Margaret
different-
Thatcher on a cold day. Margaret Thatcher on a cold day. No,
that's it, yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Hey, if you came to
But
it,
it's
yeah,
true.
baseball,
I mean,
Margaret
it's
Thatcher,
true.
yeah,
Like we literally, I mean, Michael, did we not? Like, I mean, you're talking about your
Yeah.
mum, for example.
yeah.
She found her own power. Women are
Oh, yeah.
now in their own power, and believe me, we're still fighting for our rights because in the
but-
world
and-
today,
And
be
it
a
goes back to
normal-
something else. And this
they have that
is a
power.
little bit off of subject. You know, I'm old enough to remember, but I remember like my mom. She come out of the hippies generations, burn your bra, you know, let them hang or whatever. And now these women have fought so hard for so long to find their sexual power, to come out and be strong, independent women and not be judged for what career choices they want or what sexual orientation they are or how they want to, participate, in the world. And now you have people coming in and undercutting their movement. And I always tell people, and people don't believe this, but I'm kind of a feminist. I figure, hey, if you think you can do it and it don't bother me, wear it out. If they
I'll
want
be
to be women,
completely honest.
yeah, it's
100% behind people finding their power and their voice and living their lives and living lives in equality. But I'm going to be real frank. The rest of the world, when you're walking down the street and you're all wearing vagina hats, it's a little hard to take you serious.
Yeah.
it is.
Oh, that
It is.
is.
You know what I'm saying?
Just
And,
a little bit.
I
just a
saw
little bit.
them, and the lady asked me. She said,
I,
"Why don't you?"
Sorry.
That happened to me in D.C. In my travels, I have seen everything from the riots from when they said, "Oh, police are bad," let's burn down a city, to "Oh, he grabbed me by the pussy," and then they all
Oh,
come out to me
shoot them, yeah.
and all that. And the lady told me, she said, "Your masculinity,
I
you will
want to
not."
take that chicken out.
Like $28 for and I asked her, I said, "What do you call that hat?" She said, "That's a pussy hat." I said, "Why wouldn't it be a vagina hat?" Because I think if you was going to name something so it wasn't offensive, you'd have put the right terminology to it, right? And now it's the individual showing up, and I call it putting on, basically playing dress up to, put on their woman face or whatever. You cannot portray anything if you put on red or whatever. I know the little guy that had on the makeup because he's a Chiefs fan here a while back, and they said, "Oh, he's got on blackface or he's got on Native American face or whatever."
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's hard for anybody to get behind your cause when you're stereotyping the modern woman, and like the one with the Bud Light. Most of the women I know and interact with don't act that damn ditzy. If they did, I wouldn't have nothing to do with it.
Steph
And
brings up a very good point, because for years it's been okay for guys to have had their cake and eat it, if you want
Yeah.
to use that example. It's
Oh,
it was very much lie back and think of America rather than saying
Yeah.
England. But it's like it was that kind of mentality. It was like we didn't have a voice, we didn't have a power, we didn't have anything to say. It was kind of accepted. And now women are like becoming in the bedroom, out of the bedroom, in control, more powerful. And it's like some men absolutely feel intimidated and dominated by us. And
Yeah.
it's like, I have had men say to me, "You intimidate me. You're a very powerful woman. You're a very strong woman. You intimidate me." A guy who's actually comfortable in himself would never be intimidated.
No.
Never be intimidated by a woman.
Do you
no
know,
matter how she is.
if I heard a guy tell you that, or Carlene, or any of the other ladies that are on Wicked Women, "Oh, you cannot be that strong as a woman. You intimidate me." My advice to him was, girl set of balls. Don't be a bitch. Be a man.
Mhm.
Because if you're a strong man, the way things, and I tell people, they talk about gender equality, whatever. Men, should be bigger, stronger, and, whatever, just through biology or whatever we are. So, and that's like I said. And when you asked me about my fantasy woman, I didn't pick some weak little Betty Boop type, you know what I'm saying? And if anybody knows the series or whatever, and she's talking about Jethro, she was very capable with her brain and her brawn. You know what I'm saying? And And like I said, if you're intimidated because somebody is not subservient to you or not weak, and I guess you can be a beta female just like you could be a beta male, you know, like
I
in the
mean,
wild.
yeah, I think that women are actually coming to their power, and we are taking control of our fantasies more in and out of the bedroom. I mean, I want to just cover some of these others. Novelty, adventure, and variety is very important in a fantasy. Some people want to have sex in public. They want to have sex in an unusual location. They want to have sex with a celebrity. Sex with a stranger is very, very common fantasy, apparently, whether it's on a bus, in a library, somewhere, to actually have sex with a stranger. Don't even know their name. You're just like, this is what's going to happen. That's a very, very common. And role play, and this is the thing I'm coming to, role play. Do you struggle to let your inner sex goddess or sex god lose, by playing a particular role? Does it enhance? Like, Jason, is there a part of you that would like to, and how can I put this, that would like to play a role play in your life, in your sexual life, in your out of life, that you don't do, but you would like to achieve that? You'd like to give that a go?
Why do I always get asked questions that are difficult to answer? No, that's the thing is, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I know it probably sounds horrifically boring, but no, there's really not. But it's not something that, if somebody else has, I'm not opposed to exploring. But I also am wired differently than people, just because of things associated with ADHD and how I view the world. It's vastly different from what would the common colloquialisms today are, neurodivergence and neurotypicals, and in the modern parlance. But like, I don't need a fantasy to happen to feel fulfilled. I don't need a fantasy to happen to take my relationship to the next level. If that's that situation, I don't need any of those things. What I have, I'm thankful enough and I appreciate enough as it is, and I find all of the beauty and interest and things like that in what I have in front of me. I've probably experienced too many things in life to where I've grown to appreciate more deeply the normal.
Yeah.
But you can have it with the person you're with. If you're in a relationship with someone, they can still be your fantasy. You can still live out your fantasies with that person.
That's one of the, it's great that you bring that up, because it's like, if I'm in a committed relationship, and it's in that thing, my fantasy is my partner. Like, I'm not sitting there, going through the mall or going through work or going, into Starbucks and, like that barista's pretty. I like the way she mixes my matcha latte. It's just not how I'm wired with things, and that probably seems, like I said, horrifically boring to a lot of people. But when you've seen a lot of shit in general, you get a different perspective on life, and you know what? Even the simplest things can actually be infinitely more beautiful and infinitely more sexually charging than whatever the fantasy is. I mean, it's just sitting there, to for illustrative purposes, to rip off from Jeff Foxworthy, there she come in with her good robe and vacuuming and bent over to vacuum under the table, and I thought, hell, I can watch Bonanza anytime. Like, but that's the thing, though.
Even though I shouldn't.
You see those things. You see it's in the curve of a hip, the angle of how someone is holding their head in the curve between the neck and their shoulder, or can you see the fullness of their breasts through whatever shirt they're wearing, and you see those little details, and that's what gets the nitrous flowing into the fuel system. Don't need. I don't need all that stuff. Like
I said, Jason brings up a good point. When you've been through a lot of things and you have taken a lot of emotional damage. I remember when I first got home, the smell of grass. I forgot what cut grass smelled like, and it was just overwhelming from not having that,
Yeah.
and actually to get back on American soil. And every woman that you saw, goddamn, she went to a 10. You know what I'm saying? She went to a 10. She might have one leg and, cross-eyed, but, she was a 10 because you had seen all this other shit, other places. And it really, really put your mind in a different place, So I get that, when you have been deprived of things from, I'm not going to just say America, we're international, but anything from a first world nation perspective, where they know what soap and water is and don't have a mustache. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But even the women, and I brought this up with JP the other day, I'll let you in behind, prep for the smoke pit. I said, I seen a bunch of the women that was and this is going to sound bad or whatever. They probably wasn't the most attractive, whatever.
Hang on 1 second. Hey, I don't know what the dynamic is between David Diaz and Wendy and things like that.
I'm about to answer that point.
But look, man, here's the deal. There's a time and a place for everything. And if you can't figure that out, you should probably just see yourself out.
David's asking me a question that if I'm not in a relationship with David, but it's like what he's saying is if he was in that situation, am I the sort of type that would get mad or upset if someone doesn't want to be tied up, and if someone doesn't want to be blindfolded, you're not going to do it. You might gently, not persuade, that's the wrong word. You might encourage to, give it a go, give it a try, see how you feel, how you get on. But
this sounds a lot like gaslighting somebody into doing something you want to do. I don't. How the turntable.
Or upset. And that's why I left that point up, because I wanted to say, no, I would never get mad or upset about someone who didn't want to get tied up, because it's not what you do, and it's certainly not pleasurable. But I wanted to come back because I'm determined to finish this fantasy is about role play. Would you, Michael, and yes or no answer here, would you dress up for someone if they wanted that in the bedroom?
Oh, yeah.
You would?
Oh, yeah.
And Carleen, would you do it?
I was going to say, I'm dressed up.
Colleen, would you do it?
Sure.
Carleen, she said sure. Yeah.
You would dress up. And Jason, would you?
I think for the most part, yes. I think if it was something that was intended to be demeaning, because it was that kind of a give and take kind of thing, that's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And no, respectfully, I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request. But for the most part, sure. Yeah.
The song you can leave your hat on. The song you can leave your hat on keeps coming to mind.
I mean, there were some things that, you want me to do that, dress up? Yeah, no, that's demeaning and belittling. No.
Fun, sexy. You want me to come into the bedroom dressed as
like I
Indiana
said,
Jones?
fun and sexy. Yeah.
Want me to throw on my plate carrier and my camo and jump into the bedroom door with my my bump helmet on and my M4 and being like, I'm here to save you, ma'am. Sure, I got that. That's cool.
Yeah.
You want me to be the nerd? I got that. Yeah, fine. But if it's something that's like humiliating, I appreciate my own dignity and I respect my own dignity. So I'm,
All right. Let's revisit this. Have you? No. You're talking about dressing up. I remember, and I kind of get why women fantasize about strong men. Coming in to save them. We was doing training one time, and Jason, and when I first heard it, the guy prefaced it with "There's not a gay bone in my body." and we had heard that for years and years and years, right? So somebody has to pay the casualty, and the way the story goes is, this guy, he fast ropes out of the helicopter and he comes down and he's overgrown and he comes and he slides in like a baseball slide and says, "Don't worry, buddy, I'm here to save you." Picks him up in his arms and carries him off like Fabio, and he said, "The only thing I could do was lay there and have my arms laid around his neck, and just curl over in." It's like, "Oh, I know you've got me." And and you know, and then it goes back to fantasy verse. You know, when we do the training, the guys would come in. Most times they end up kicking you in the nuts or the side of the head. It's like, hey, don't worry, buddy, I'm here to save you. And you're saying, God damn, dude, you got a size 14 boot you just kicked me with. But no, when I first heard that, but I get the strong man, you know, and somebody who's been injured or whatever, and you know, the guys come in and they grab you. It's like, don't worry, buddy, I got you. You know, and it's just something about that
I
forceful.
suddenly feel very safe, sir.
It's, you know, yeah, it's like
I know you got me.
I'm
and
going
it's
to
like,
go back to the sexual fantasies and I want to cover them. Another one is taboo activities. Sometimes a fantasy can be doing something that other people think is taboo. Like it's my fantasy, but it's not theirs. And that could involve, you know, oral sex. It can be anal sex, which obviously like is taboo in many different cultures. Sex with someone like a teacher or a police officer or someone in the position of power. Sex with someone younger or older, being exhibitionist, voyeurism, as Michael's already covered. And it can also be having more passion, romance, and intimacy in the bedroom. I fantasize that you hold me more. I fantasize that you kiss me more. I fantasize that you cuddle me. I even fantasize that we just have sex, because how many couples that could probably turn and say, I wish I had more sex. I fantasize about having more sex.
Yeah.
So you know, having the passion, romance, and intimacy is a fantasy. Also, a fantasy about having sex with an ex-partner. Sometimes there can be they were really good in bed, you know, etc., etc. You know, having you know, I don't know about you, Carleen, but it's like, you know, sometimes if I've been in a relationship and it hasn't been the most happiest ones, you can actually look back and go, it was better with that person. I mean, I'm sure guys think that too.
Oh, yeah. Been there, done that.
The other joke was
Actually, I can say, and this was before I was married before I was married to even my second husband. Me and my first ex-husband got divorced, and sex was much better after we were divorced.
Yeah, that's really true. That's a really, because the pressure's off, right? You don't really, you haven't got that thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were both single, so we hurt no one. But like I said, it was much better after we didn't have the pressures and the everyday upkeep of lifestyle.
Right, and you know, and another thing is when you bring kids into the dynamic, you know, during my marriage this sounds weird, but every time Barney came on, I thought, yep, time to get hard, you know. Because you got 30 minutes to get this shit in, you know, and everybody's like, what? It's like, you know,
Synchronized
watches. Yeah, mission start in T-5.
Barney is, I love you, you love me, right?
Yeah, I love you, you love me.
Household 7. Barney is on the tube. Barney is on the tube.
Yeah, and that was back before DVRs and all this thing, and a lot of people don't realize it, but
inbound now.
You know, it was like quick as you know, something that came on to grab the kids. You know, there's nothing more that is an antidote for an erection and some kid tickling your body foot. Hey, what y'all doing? Unarmed combats. We want your mom to be ready for anything. God damn it. Go watch Barney.
I'm never going to look at Barney the same way ever again.
I was going to say. All I can think of is, I love you, you love me.
And, you know, and people said, I hate that purple dinosaur. I said, you know, you leave Barney the fuck alone. Barney's doing God's work right here. All right.
Right.
Oh, I took you wrong. What, Michael?
Don't want you to get fucking or something, kid. Jesus.
I think.
Sarah says she's traumatized. I think they were saying that you find Barney sexy.
Hey. Oh no! Like I said, you know, but Barney was my buddy. You know what I'm saying? When Barney came on,
it's not that Barney is. It's not that Barney is sexy, and you shouldn't be traumatized by that. It's a Pavlovian response. All right.
You knew your kids were glued to the TV screen for 30 minutes.
Right. You've got your window of operational, time, and you execute mission.
I do have to ask though, They always had commercials during Barney. What happened during a commercial?
Exactly.
That's when
Hey,
you get his foot tickled, probably.
Yeah, probably. It's like, go the fuck away. No, that's when you realize maybe you need a better lock on the bedroom door. Yeah,
Lock the door, right? Yeah, sure.
yeah. Like, yeah.
Hey, guys.
Say, honey, say, when did you grow an extra hand? Who's tickling my fucking foot?
I have,
Yeah.
I have thankfully never experienced that.
You want to talk about a boner bust? Oh, Jesus
I
Christ.
have never experienced that. Now, I have obviously experienced the kid starts crying, you're back, and like but never having been walked in on by a child. That is wearing that like a badge of honor.
Yeah, you can ask my kid.
That's a rough one when the kid walks in on you. I'm like, oh crap.
It said,
Great. The kids basically, observed what's in their world, probably the equivalent to a war crime.
I remembered one of the time my oldest, she went running through the house or something, and I heard a crash. She said, "Oh!" I said, "God damn it! Are you hurt or are you injured?"
Yeah.
She said, "It's hurting." I said, "Well, if it's hurting, you can continue. If you're injured, I have to stop and get dressed." And her mom's like, "You're an asshole." I'm like, "Okay."
It's often say that Barney
Continue
is
training.
the fantasy, but it's like
Oh, or the Wiggles. Yeah, I forgot about the Wiggles.
I actually don't know. I know Barney. I don't know all the songs, so I'm going to have to go and check this out
You
now.
can do Mr. Blue. Yeah.
Oh, Barney, yes. I love you. You love me. We're happy. Yeah. Family. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm thinking that's why maybe my parents always tried to find houses whenever we would PCS where the bedrooms were always one end and
the
rec room was
It's on the other.
way on the other.
And this is what I always told them. You think about it. Your grandparents always had plastic covering on the couch and chairs. Grandma was a squirter, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Jeez. Oh,
You
my
know
God.
what I'm saying? If you want to take it, she said fruit salad.
Breathe.
But you think about it. The things you figure out when you're older,
No.
and that's like the little boy said, the worst thing you could ever do is kiss your mom on your dad's birthday. That's just some knowledge that they
I
should
always
tell.
thought they had plastic thing on their thing because they absolutely wanted to keep
it forever. Keep it forever. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep them forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good furniture. You take care of it, all right?
Oh,
You
yeah.
wax the
family
car, you
heirloom.
put a cover on the car, Come on,
Yeah.
we got to keep that weird outdoor pheasant with the log cabin, whatever print on the
Jesus
couch
Christ.
from
Oh, my
the
word.
late 70s going into the early 80s. We got to make sure that doesn't sun fade or get stained.
Oh, have you ever tried to move one of them couches that's got the solid wooden frame and the arms or whatever? Jesus Christ. It's like moving a fucking Moab.
Just get a pallet jack.
What about when you're in a relationship though, and you're dating someone who's a lot
Boring.
stronger personality than you,
Oh.
and it makes you feel more because we've all done it in our time. Probably we've all dated someone with a stronger personality than us, and we've actually felt, like you often see like pick couples together, and someone asks them a question, and the other person answers the question for them. Does that make us feel uncomfortable when we see a relationship that's very much like that, or is it something that we go, well, it works for them? How do we feeling about that, Jason?
Well,
Jason.
okay. First default with if it's something, I'm assuming that nothing horrendous is going on. It's just a strong personality versus a submissive personality. There's no disrespect. There's no abuse. There's none of those kinds of things. And if that works for their dynamic, then that's who are we to judge? We can't. We can't put our own ideals of what a relationship or how a partner should behave on someone else. I mean, until there are lines crossed in terms of general morality and ethics, But I think one of the funny things is for me, you talk about the strong personality thing. I have been accused of having a strong personality in relationships on more than one occasion.
Mhm.
And it's not even a thing about like, calling the shots and who is whatever. I just have a personality that comes through more so maybe than the other person's
Yeah.
personality. But like you're very stubborn and you have a strong personality and that's why this isn't working. And I'm like, what? So I don't normally make the decisions for everybody. I try to make it 50-50 or let the other person do it just because I like the other person being happy. But you get two strong personalities in a situation.
Yeah.
That gets interesting.
Yes, because you've got like sometimes you can have like two alphas, and and that can, as you say, very, very interesting because the dynamics there is like, sometimes it feels like it's a competition or it's very competitive, or it's like the other one is like trying to get above the other one, and maybe they enjoy that dynamic, but watching it, it's not. Carlene, do you know what I mean? You've obviously seen the women and men relationships like that, where someone might ask the lady something and the guy will answer for her because it's that kind of.
I have, and no offense intended, to anyone on here. I see that, and I see, because I've been there, done that. I see, okay, something, if you're out in public and you're not allowing your partner to answer, there's something seriously wrong there.
And with that, Carlene, I have seen people go out and a waiter come over and say, "What do you want?" "Oh, I'll order for that." I'll order for her, or whatever.
For sure. That's what I mean.
And,
Yeah, that's.
I'm thinking, she has a voice; she can speak for herself. But on the same time, if they're comfortable with that, and she's comfortable in the lifestyle that he provides her, and a lot of times you see that with people who make a lot more money, and they have a woman on their arm, and she becomes an accessory, and that's another whole different kink. And and I have learned to have, the older I get, to walk away from saying anything, because at the end of the day, not my monkey, not my circus, and like I said, long as there's no violence or whatever, I'm like, Pete, I want to say.
The problem is a lot of times you don't see the violence. I mean, a lot of people after I left my second husband, like, well, it took you long enough to wake up. We saw it, even though you've tried to hide it. It's like, okay, really?
But from like what JP was saying, if you cannot make a preemptive strike in a crowded restaurant and break his nose. If I see him put his hands on you in public,
yeah,
I'm gonna give him the opportunity.
Oh no, but a lot of times it's hidden. A lot of times it's hidden. Nobody has a clue.
And
but
you can't make it
sometimes when you're in a restaurant and a pub, sorry to counteract, and you see someone walking very purposely and striding, and people think, look, they're very sort of like self-confident. I want to actually come up with this quote, which is, being dominant is a self-confidence, and sometimes that can come across as arrogant or bravado.
Yeah.
Normally dominant people are very direct. They're very to the point. They get their point over very quickly. They get right to the point, and they are blunt in communication, and they make decisions just like that. I would say that I don't actually make decisions that quick. But when we talk about fantasy and dominance, I feel like I've wanted to emigrate, to leave this country for many, many years. And so many people were like, it's a dream. It's never going to happen. It's a fantasy. It's not the real world. You don't live in the real world. And it's like, well, sometimes we have to hang on to that fantasy or that dream to live in the real world. Because if we don't, it's like that, what have we got left?
Oh, it's having a goal to achieve towards can be that fantasy too. I mean,
exactly.
If you have no dreams,
if it's meant to happen, Wendy, it will happen. Look at me. It took me, like I said, I started visiting Virginia in the early 80s, fell in love with the area. So swore to God back then I was going to move here. Never did. And finally, it's like, you know what? I need to live my life, and to heck with. I love everybody, my family, miss them terribly, but I need to live my life.
And I'll be completely honest. That's something, the mindset you're talking about there, with people, why do you want to move away? Don't move away. This, that, and the other thing. And I am probably in a way a little bit programmed, just because being a military brat and being in the military and things like that, having been in the military, the prospect of moving someplace has never, ever made me scared about doing it. Now, do I worry about the mechanics involved, the logistics? That's what I get worried about, is making sure that I can make it happen logistically. But I don't understand these people who completely, totally cling to their hometown. And it's something that I ran into with my ex-girlfriend, and it was like, no, I'm not moving, and it's always something, it's like, hey, there's a position, it's it's a couple of states away, but it would put us in a really awesome position, because like, when I date somebody, I'm not like in a relationship to just have fun. Like there's an end goal in mind, and I'm gonna try to work towards that. It's like, hey, if I take this job and we go out there, there might have to be some training on you to get into your field in a different state, real estate, banking, anything like that, right? You have to get certified. But you can pick that profession up and take it someplace. It's a little harder for me to do that because there's fewer places to go. And it's kind of a fight to get into them. And but it's like, hey, this place, I take this job, this place over here, we will be in such a better position in the long run to do these things and try to pursue these things that we want, whether it's, better education for the kids, or it's, working towards a more sustainable retirement, etc. But no. My parents, my family, friends, family, they're all here. And it's like, so what? We live in an age where, just look at the highway speeds now. You go to Texas and you find 85 miles an hour, right? We're only hours away by car, maybe a couple of days by car or train, etc. Hours, sometimes minutes by aircraft. So we can get wherever we absolutely need to be if we need to be somewhere for something.
But I remember when I moved out of just the area that I lived in, and I lived about 25 minutes by car, literally. Not many of my family came to visit me. It was like, oh, you're not around the corner anymore. And I was like, but I'm not that far away. And it was like, oh, we don't get to come down there that often, and life's really busy. And I never really saw. So the thought of me actually moving thousands of miles away, I do get a lot of like, oh, why do you want to leave? Why do you want to do that? And it's like, because before I leave this planet, it's a goal of mine. It's a dream. And even if it's it doesn't happen, I have to hold on to it. Have to.
But even when you talk about leaving your country, people will come up, oh, you're unpatriotic. Don't you have any allegiance to whatever? And I get the fantasy, and I was on the and I was on the phone with Wendy, and I got a family member, and I love him to death. I think of him like a brother. And he's like, well, why do you want to go there for? And and I know he's not that thick, as Wendy would say, and he's not uneducated. But at the end of the day, the road don't end at the end of Bristol. No. They don't quit making pavement at the stop sign at the end of town. Yeah. And I tell them, it's a big, big world we live in out there. And why wouldn't you want to see it? Planes, trains, and automobiles. Jesus Christ, our world is getting smaller by the day. And a lot of these fantasies of seeing other countries, and that's where passport bros come into. All these guys have figured out for $300, you can get a passport. For another $300, you can get a plane ticket. And for, a little bit of hotel money, you can go to another country and about live out any fantasy you want. And I always said the Philippines and places like that is a new Vegas. What happens there is supposed to stay there, except for chlamydia, and that shit will follow you home. And but yeah, like I said, I get it. I get the whole fact. And me and her has talked, and about come. And she told me once before, I never seen myself wanting to come to America. And things evolve over time. Because right now they got Purdue in Canada, or whatever his name is, Castro Jr. In Canada.
Yeah.
Trudeau, yeah.
Yeah, it ain't as appealing for the fantasy of snow bunnies and skiing as it used to be. And
But I also think as well,
I get it,
though, the other thing as well, like we all walk around. Sometimes we pull it up, put our face on. We actually all play the role sometimes of someone else. We actually don't show people what we're really feeling underneath the surface. We actually don't show people who we really are. We like I put a good face on, right? Makeup goes on, whatever. You put your war paint on, you put the face on, and it's like it hides a multitude of sins of what you're really feeling, because if people were to see sometimes exactly how you were feeling underneath all that, there's a part of you that doesn't want them to see that. And also, like, if they did see what you're really feeling, how you would cope with that, let alone them. And grief is using this as an example. When you're in grief and you're trying to deal with grief, everybody, I've had people say to me, are you over it yet? Are you back to normal? Is everything normal? Are you back to normal life yet? And it's like, no, just because I've got this face on, or this role that I'm playing of being, I'm fine, I'm getting on with life, because we can't all go around crying all the time, or we can't go around keep falling apart. You have to put the face on. And that's why I'm saying that sometimes that role play comes into, people don't want to hear about your issues. They don't want to, they don't know how to deal with it more than ever. So I think all of us role plays at some time in our life, because we have to. Carleen, do you find that with work and stuff as well, that you put on a particular face, or you play a particular role to not show people what you're really thinking?
Maybe not with work, but with family. That was the main reason I never moved. It was like, oh well, I've got to be here and it wasn't family guilt. It was mine. It was like, I can't leave, because what if something happens to this one, or what if something happens to that one?
That's right. Oh yeah,
and it's like, it's scary to think you're going to be that far away from someone.
Yeah.
And finally, like I said, after my grandmother passed, it was kind of like a light turned on. I mean, his mother, like I said, she's the one who still causes grief and anxiety. Oh, I'm the evil one because I moved her son away. Well, you know what? Mm-hmm. She got blasted today because I said, I'm at the point where you're not going to put your guilt on me. And actually, you are part of the reason we moved away, so we could live our lives.
I understand. Yeah. My mum always says to me, what am I going to do without you? And my mum is 86, so obviously that's understandable. What am I going to do without you if you go? And you do feel the guilt, like Sarah and Steph. Like, you do feel the guilt that if something happened and you're not here, and you're thousands of miles away, I wasn't there. But at the same time, our lives are going past. The sand is coming down in our own, a glass, and you just think to yourself, sometimes you just got to bite that bullet, and you did it, Carleen. It took you long enough, and you got to a point when you're like, I'm going to do it. But at the same time, what if we don't achieve? What if we don't achieve, or we do achieve that fantasy? I'm using this as an example. I'm sure if I did move to Canada, it would fulfill so many things inside me. Of course it would. But at the same time, what if it didn't live up to the reality? And I've changed all my life. I've done everything. Thank you, Sarah.
That's a tough one. I look at it like home is always there. I mean, I'm always going to consider Vermont home.
Yeah.
I was born and raised there. I lived there 60 years. It's always going to be there. I'm always going to have family there.
But when you're thousands of miles
as my therapist told me a week ago, she said, how long are you going to wait to live your life and enjoy what life you have?
Good point.
and I'm sure Wendy and Mike can both relate to this.
Mm.
Before you live your life, I mean, how long are you going to let these people run your life before you enjoy yours?
Right.
And whether it be really like with his mother, she's just plain mean, nasty, and ugly. She's always been that way.
Mm.
I mean, it's nothing new. They say, "Oh, she's got dementia, so she's mean, ugly, and nasty." Well, you know what? My husband and my ex-husband are best friends. That's how I met them. I met my now husband 40 years ago. He was best friends with my first husband.
Mhm.
And it's like, the woman was always that way. So you know what? We're still there for her. Yes, we are probably 10 hours away if we need to be there. But if he needs to be there, a plane can get him there in an hour or two.
But I think what Wendy was going to, she wants to know if you got to a certain place, say you moved all the way from Maine down to Virginia, and you got here, and Virginia turned into be a shithole. It was worse than where you left.
Oh yeah.
It is a blue state.
As I said, home's always there. Home is never going to leave.
It's very different when you've gone thousands of miles, given up your
that's what I'm saying.
But it's as far as Wendy, you're going. You're going hours and hours and hours. You're going twice, more than twice the distance that we went.
What is it? Five time zones. Yeah, 9
hours. Yeah.
But would the disappointment be more? Would the disappointment be bigger once you find out the fantasy was not there? And I've been taking notes. I'm getting better at taking notes.
And this is a very good point, Michael. Does the idea of having that wish or fantasy in our life make our own life better because it gives us something to keep us going?
And you've seen this, like with my school or whatever. It was, and I haven't given up on my hopes and dreams that we had discussed for a long time, but it gave me something to work harder to fulfill my fantasy. It gave me a reason to get out of bed every day, because if I did not have that motivation and that drive to make this happen, it wouldn't have happened. It brought me out of a very, very dark spot. And I tell people the difference between perceived reality or whatever is the person you see in front of the screen right now or in front of the camera is not what people see day to day. And a lot of people, when they meet a celebrity or something, and I've heard this on Scotty's show, well, when I met her, she was a bitch. No, you've got caught up in the fantasy of what you see in the woman portraying herself on screen, what she gets paid to do. And in reality, you met her, she's human. So therefore, she killed the fantasy. And I think it is one of the things that is a bigger letdown, because once somebody pokes hole in your fantasy boat, it loses air pretty quick. And like she's talking about, there's a few things that don't lie in life. Kids are one, drunks are another, yoga pants, and people with dementia. They will straight tell you what they think. And that's what I tell them, and you got to watch how much energy you put into your fantasy, because if it is totally unattainable, and I have told my children this, and me and James, I'm so proud of him. He's got his first real job, and I told him, I said, now you get to see how reality works other than a fantasy world. Yeah. Now you have to get up and lace your shoes up every day, and you got to go to work. You're on somebody else's timeline. Just like being in the Army. JP can contest to this. Yeah. My life was not my own. The one guy comes down, you be here at 7:00. So, it trickles down, platoon sergeant say, you be here at 6:45. Your squad leader says, be here at 6:30. Then if you're responsible for somebody else that is a total shitbag that can't get there on time, you back his time up to 6:15. So that means you're there at 6:00. So your hard time just got pushed from 7:00 back to 6:00. So therefore you just lost an hour. So I get a lot of what he's saying is when you have no control and everything is set in stone. And I tell people, anybody that wants a career, as a young man or a woman, if you can navigate the Army, it's one of the easiest jobs in the world, because people, it's run by a bunch of control freaks. You do as I say, when I say, and how I say, or I will punish you. There's a bunch of dominatrix that's in the Army, a bunch of for what's the one that just hurts people for shits and giggles? It's part of the BDSM. Sadomasochist. Yeah. Oh, come here. And I knew you wanted to go home at 13:30 today. We was gonna have a short day, but his inability to hold you to.
Do you think there's
2200.
some people also,
It's a power
and
trip.
I'm choosing my words here, stay in a
Oh.
relationship because they still hope for the fantasy rather than, like, for instance, and Michael, I think you'll know, we've had this conversation about people in life. The relationship is done, but they still stay because they still hope for the fantasy to come back of what once was. And then it's like coming to what actually is real and what actually is a fantasy. And I'm sure Jason can relate to this as well. It's like sometimes you need to wake up and smell the coffee and see it for what it actually is, but you still hope and stay because it's like my wish, my goal, my fantasy is that it's going to go back. You know, they're going to love me, they're going to want me, they're going to want to have sex with me, they're going to want to make me again. How many years did we waste with that wish and fantasy instead of looking at reality?
My mom had a very good saying growing up. She said, "You can never go home. Once you burnt that bridge, you can never rebuild it completely. There will always be damage." And now that the older I get, the more I look back at this wisdom that came from my mom. You know, even, you know, they say even a broke clock's right twice a day. Even my dad, you know, that's still kind of fresh. And but you know, some of the things that he would say, you know, it's kind of making sense, you know, a little bit. And my grandfather was just a rough old coal miner. You know, if it smelled a bit off, you know, he was quick to choose violence. But that was the environment he grew up in, and his reality. If you couldn't see it, feel it, taste it, or whatever, then it was totally useless. And if you did not live in the realm of what he considered reality, he had no time for you. You know, and back then, you know, they grew up poor. They didn't have time for dreamers. They didn't have time for anything other than their. Oh, there's Keith. Hey, Keith. Other than what they had right then, you know, it's like if you couldn't touch it, feel it, you know, feed your family with it, or drive on productively, you know, they had no time for it. And but like I said, you know, but once you kill that, whatever, yeah, and it was like, oh, and I've heard people say, well, it'll never be the same, and it never will. There's not a Band-Aid that's going to fix the bullet hole that you can put in.
True. I want to welcome Keith. It's so lovely to see you, my love. What have you've been watching the show from the back today? What's your view and points on what we've been chatting about?
I have. I had a nap. I'm awake now.
Okay.
But in the background, during my nap, I was waking up, listening, catching points. Fantasy versus reality. You have all hit on spot on points. When you're in a relationship, you go into that relationship expecting gold. Yeah, you see what that person can be. You see their potential. What you're not looking at is your own potential. You're not looking at who you are or who you can be. You're relying on that other person to make you who you need. You need to rely on yourself. We can help that person all we want to in order to grow, to be who they can be. But if they don't want to, they are not going to. Fantasy versus reality. And later on down the line, when the reality finally hits, you realize, oh shit.
Yeah.
I jumped in order to not be alone. There was a shiny. I jumped for it. I've been there. Since I've been there, I have seen other shinies, and I sat back, and I had to take a step back. And right now, I would love to have a shiny in my life, but maybe I'm not ready. I this weekend to take stock of where I am. I have sat back, I sat down, and took a rest. this weekend just to think.
And sometimes you just need that. You need to be selfish and have that time for yourself
Yes.
to work out who you are. The thing about fantasy and reality and in control is that how much control, Keith, do any of us have over our life? If we're completely honest, I mean, we might have certain things in our lives and areas that we're in control of. But if I was to look at if right now in your life, would you say that you're more in control than you've ever been emotionally and in life, or is there still areas that you wish that you were?
I'd have to say yes and no, because I'm still learning who I am. I'm still bouncing back and forth between who I used to be and who I'm becoming. The struggle is real. The fight to do what I used to do just to get attention, to not be alone, versus that's the wrong kind of attention. There is a constant struggle there.
Yes.
It hit hard this weekend, and I had to put my phone down. I had to shut off the internet. I had to just sit here with myself and say, okay, is this temporary thing, this temporary shiny, something that's worth it? Or do you want to wait for someone that is going to fulfill the rest of your life in the right way?
Spot on. And that's what you want to do. You want to be looking for that one, because the temporaries are never ever good. Do you look back and go, there are fantasies in your life that you still want to achieve that you haven't? I mean, when I say fantasies, I'm looking at both sides, in your personal life and also sexually.
There's some things out there that I'm still looking to achieve. Looking for words. I've got a lot of issues with myself that I sometimes fantasize of repairing. Health issues, mental health issues, spiritual health issues. I fantasize every day about repairing. It is a slow process, step by step by step. I need to go through this lesson in order to get to the next step. And sometimes we take a step backwards. I actually did a live right before you guys went live about that. It's okay to take a step backwards, but don't fall all the way back down the stairs. You can take a step back and look at what it took to get to that next step and see and understand how you got there and why you got there. But it's also okay to take a step back and look at it. What did you have to go through to get to that next step? Now, what are you going to have to go through to get to the next one? Process.
Do you feel like you role play as well in your life, Keith? Do you feel sometimes that you play the role of someone who you're not really are, to cover what you really are underneath?
Yes, every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I do my best not to, but every day I grab that mask and I put that mask on in order to survive my work day, in order to help the person who is reaching out to me for help. I am covering up where I am in my life. I may be like this weekend. I'm kind of rock bottom right now.
Yeah.
But yet I put a mask on. Here I am. I've had people reach out to me for help. I helped them. I had to put a mask on and say, hey, you're okay, for 30 minutes. Then you can go back to yourself. It's a process.
What do you when you put your role, when you say you put that role play, what is it you are? Because Michael and Jason and Carlene, we've all talked about it. When you role play, what are you covering up? What are you covering or not showing?
The hurt that I've been throughout my life.
Spot on.
I don't want other people to see that.
Yeah.
Even though oftentimes I get on my lives, and I talk about it.
Yeah.
I talk about it to help others.
Yeah.
I was always used to be always ashamed of the things I did and who I was. I'm not anymore. I accepted it. And now I can talk about that in order to help others who might be in that same situation. Hey, it's okay. You up. It's okay.
See, I can really relate to you because that's what I do. I put sometimes I play to cover up what I'm really feeling, because as I was saying, if you could see the pain and the fear and everything else that I have inside me, you put a very good mask on to cover that.
Yes.
The role I play, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we need to do that in order to help others.
Adding on to that,
What's that?
What was that, Michael?
Sarah said very early on about putting a mask on. She said she puts on the whole chiseled Ice Queen mask to go into an environment, like with a work or whatever.
Yeah.
Because if you do show a vulnerable side, people might look at you and say, hey, this person is a pushover. And it goes back to RBS. And I didn't know what RBS was. A woman told me one morning that she was, that her friend was suffering from RBS. And I said, well, damn, I hope she gets better soon. And they looked at me like I had three heads, because I'm thinking IBS or something, but she said RBS. A lot of times, we do go through life with, with a mask or a persona, and that helps us cope day to day. And is that our reality? In the moment, maybe. But also, and Jason has probably been there. I don't know Keith's background that good as much as me and Jason has talked. But a lot of times, even though I might be a certain way, but if I'm in front of my soldiers or somebody else, I'm the unmovable NCO. Even if shit's going sideways, you got mortars and small arms, indirect, direct, it's whatever. Now, if you look scared, it trickles down. So you have to put that face on of, no, fuck the world, I got this. And it's like, we're going back to, it's like, when the guy comes in to pick you up when you're wounded or whatever, it's like, don't worry, buddy, I got you. If they come in, it's like, holy Jesus Christ, you're all fucked up, dude. You're going to go into a panic mode. You're going to go into shock. So when you do wear that mask, it is not only for your benefit, but a lot of times it's for the benefits of the others around you. And if I had to call Keith and reach out for help, it's like, goddamn, Keith, my cat ran off, my truck won't start, my beer fridge is empty, what do I do? And I see he's like, well, goddamn, I don't know either, man. So's mine. My life is shit. You're going to think, well, damn, the whole world's gone tits up, so when somebody else puts that mask on, it's not only for their benefit, but it could be for the benefits of the people that you're around.
I was just talking about it today, about how for me to show my vulnerability and to lower that wall, it takes a lot of trust. And I do put up this very strong,
yes, it does.
A woman, and I am. Don't get me wrong. I am strong, and I am a confident woman, and I take no prisoners when I have to. I mean, Michael would tell you that if Wendy says something, she says it to the point, and that's it. But there's also a side to me. I come out of traumatic relationships, violent relationships. I've had, I've lost babies. I've had nothing but ill health. I've been, in and out of hospital. A lot of things that people don't know about me, that they don't see, that I don't talk about, that I don't show, because I don't want people to always see that side of me, because I don't want to deal with, and that's the wrong word. I don't want to have to. I'm living it every day. I don't want to just talk about it every day. So you put on this thing to survive. That's very true, Sarah. It's a balance to survive. And I think that with fantasy, I'm not a fantasy. I'm very realistic. People said to me, "You're very pessimistic." Yes, I am. Life has taught me to be pessimistic. I'm still positive, but I'm more realistic. And I think that what I wanted to do with today's show is actually talk about, in every area of our life, Keith, what parts of us are actually real. And it's probably the parts that we don't always show.
Yeah.
Because we keep it hidden.
It's the parts that we don't want to deal with every day. the parts that we know are hard to deal with.
Mhm.
And we don't want to let other people see us being vulnerable at times. Sometimes we just need to be strong. And it's struggle. It's a choice of when to be vulnerable versus when to be strong. And sometimes we need to be strong for ourselves, and sometimes we just need to be strong for other people, which in turn also helps us, even if we can't see it.
And I think that the dominant and sub relationship as well, like, you know, you are showing each other's strengths and vulnerability to each other, and without the other person giving you that confidence or that permission to do that. Jason, someone said to me today, when I was having a really good conversation about it as well. When you first meet someone, you're in the honeymoon period, or a lot of people show the honeymoon period to someone. It's all wonderful and great and wonderful. And they're like, I don't do that anymore. I don't do the honeymoon period anymore. I just go straight as this is me. This is me. This is what you're getting. And if in 3 months' time, I'm not going to be any different, I'm going to be exactly the same as I am now.
Yes.
And that way, and he said, don't get me wrong, I'm still going to do the whole honeymoon period. I'm still going to do that, but it's each day goes along. If I just did it for the first month and then 2 months later, I showed you someone completely different, you wouldn't want that. Do you think that's a good point, that a lot of people do live in that, in a new relationship, the fantasy honeymoon period?
Well, I think it's very valid. When you first enter into a new relationship, I mean, you have all of these, hormones coursing through your body. Your brain is releasing all these different chemicals that gear you up for the. Who are you? You're pointing to somebody, Keith.
You. I'm pointing to you.
You're right.
Yes. Good points. Yes. You.
Oh, I see. Yes. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're on the bottom of the Brady Bunch.
But and from a basal kind of sense, from an animalistic kind of sense, it all makes perfect sense to do. From a procreational kind of standpoint, well, yeah, everybody's putting their best foot forward. You're going through the whole rutting season thing, and there's that drive to procreate. And so, yeah, it does happen. And honeymoon phases do wax and wane. And, and it's, because everyone wants to feel wanted. Yes, everyone.
Yeah.
But that goes back to Wendy. Me and her was having a conversation one morning, and she said, Michael, would you ever show up to your first date in sweatpants? I said, who the fuck showed up with a date with you with sweatpants?
Oh my word.
So
that sounds like a question from experience.
I was going to say, yeah.
I've never had that experience, actually.
But she asked me that, and I was like, somebody who don't want to get laid shows up to a date in sweatpants. But then you go that. But the honeymoon period is you're trying to show them the best possible scenario as you as a person.
Right.
And you don't want to show them.
Animate.
Yeah.
I don't think I think what I'm saying is like sometimes when we meet someone, we, like, for instance, with my husband, like he portrayed himself as somebody completely different.
Yep.
And I was living under the fantasy, but I didn't know that at the time, because what I saw him show me was a complete illusion to the person he absolutely was. Because 8 months later, what I actually saw was a completely different person who was not in control, incredibly vulnerable, incredibly insecure, and acted a certain way. And hence why our marriage went down the Swanee, although we were together for 6 years. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, sometimes we want the fantasy. We want it because we search it for so long. We seek it. We crave it. We crave this perfect man, this perfect woman, which don't exist. But the nearer damn it you can get to it, the nearest damn it you can get to it. Do you know what I mean?
I think one thing talking about you're getting an entirely you got an entirely different person. There was the fantasy.
Yeah.
I do think that it is important for people to obviously recognize when, something is fantasy and they're just living in a fantasy world, but also to learn to differentiate between a person who is putting up a unrealistic or dishonest front about who they are, and a flawed person who wants to attain something, but for whatever reason has difficulty in doing that. And I say that from my own personal experiences, because there are lots of things that I want to do. There are lots of things that in terms of the man I want to be when, with my partner and for myself, and to my kids, and I fall short. And people can forget that you're human, and they maybe put the initial things up on a pedestal, and they hold that as, this is the standard. We are now a zero default army, and if you deviate from this, you're gonna walk home with your DD-214. And the thing is, that's unrealistic, and that can create a whole other level of stresses and demands artificially onto that person that maybe shouldn't be there or shouldn't be as intense. It's you can sit there and say, oh, well, you said you're going to do these things and you haven't, right? Well, okay. Why haven't they happened? Have they not happened because you don't give a shit and you're just blowing smoke? Or have they not happened because your brain is literally running in 12 different directions at any given moment and shit just slides off the cracker? And learning to recognize the difference between the two.
Well, it's been a few years now. I actually got on the dating apps, and we, that's another whole show that we covered like last week and all that stuff, right? So I went out, and the first thing she hit me with is, what is your 10-year life plan? I'm thinking, I don't even know what the hell I'm going to have for breakfast in the morning, much less a 10-year life plan. Like you said, ADHD, I'm lucky if I eat. Wendy the other day, she called me, she's like, hey, Michael, we ate today, and being sick and everything else. Sometimes things get slid back on your priority or I need to get shit done list. But what would you do if you got on the dating apps and you rolled out? I'll tell you exactly what. This was a Buffalo Wild Wings. Very casual, have a drink, a few chicken wings, get to know somebody. What would you do if the first words out of her mouth was, hey, Jason, you're a really lovely guy, but I didn't know what your life plan is. Not 2 years, not 3 years, but 10-year life plan. And that right there told me she's probably way too much OCD for this old boy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, I'm one of those people that how questions are phrased and how questions are presented in general, given the whole dynamics of the conversation and the interaction, before I start passing judgment on something, or start reacting. But if somebody approached me with that, and I've had questions like, what do you want to do with your life? Where are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? For me, that's one of those things I have to be honest. It's like, there's a lot of things that I would like to be, but you know what? I don't know, because life has too many twists and turns. I'm going to work to try to get where they are. I would love to have my own, business set up on Route 66 where I'm welcoming travelers of the Mother Road and bringing them into the community and furthering these things. But I don't know when that's going to happen. I could sit here and say that's my 10-year goal, but life has too many variables. So let's try speaking in terms of what's something you would like to do.
And what about you, Keith? How do you feel about that sort of situation?
5 years ago, if somebody asked me what my 10-year goal was, I would have no idea. It was surviving from day to day. Now, today, I am also surviving from day to day to day. However, I have a goal. Be financially fit, find peace in my life, and find a love that I can share equally and reciprocally. That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I think why women ask that question, I can't speak for all women, but I think a lot of reason, Carlene, you can probably come on this. I think a lot of reason why women ask those questions is because we want to see, and I say we, as I said, general, but we want to see that a man as either knows what he wants and he's going to go for it. Is he a man who will take control, or has he got his shit together, or is he kind of like, well, if I just fly by the seat of my pants, you're kind of like, that's not someone I can build a future with. Security. Do you see what I mean, Colleen? What's your view on that?
Oh, we asked that question for security, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because
I mean,
that's
you
what.
know, I've
Emotional
had
and
enough health issues, and I've been through the ringer more than once. And we're like, we want to know that, okay, if we're going to do this jump, like told my husband now, when we were first hanging out, I'm like, yeah, I'm never, ever getting married again. Been there, done it, never worked. But I don't know. I think I saw the security and it's like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about it this time. Well,
it's pretty sexy though to find a guy, Keith, that and Michael, that has got their crap together, that actually know what they want, and they actually. I always say, for me, one of the most sexiest thing about a guy is if he talks the talk and walks the walk. There's no fantasy, there's no illusion. It is what you see is what you're getting. And the conversation I had today was literally about, people date the fantasy, and when they actually then get to see the reality, when 3 months down the line, things start to relax and people start to see the real person, or they start to feel more comfortable to show other sides of themselves, whether that be whatever it is. People don't want to know. So it's like, do we want to date the fantasy? I think all of us, if we're completely honest at the beginning, we do. Don't you think, Keith?
Yes, absolutely. If I have noticed, when I am completely honest with somebody up front about, okay, they ask me, who are you? Where are you at in your life? I tell them, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. Are you willing?
Mm-hmm.
Silence.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Silence.
Why do you think that is?
Unless they have ulterior motives. They just don't want to be alone right now. This is where I am. I am rebuilding my house. I am rebuilding my home. I am rebuilding myself, and I am rebuilding me. If you can't handle that, you don't need to be in my life. If you cannot handle me at my worst on certain days, you do my best.
Yeah.
I will do my best to give you everything that I can. However, I will be honest with you to a fault. If you can't take that, that's not my issue. That's their issue. And that tells me that's a person that I do not need to deal with.
That goes back. I'm glad you said that, Keith. I always tell them, if you can't walk the muddy dirt road with me, don't come in while we're rolling on, what is it? The yellow brick road made of gold. You know what I'm saying? If you cannot be in the mud, the blood, and the shit with me, why should you get all the benefits of all the struggle I've been through? And that goes back into, the fantasy, we all wear a tie.
I relate to that because like Michael brings up a good point, because people see me, right? And they see obviously what we project, what we show. We don't always want to turn up with no makeup on and looking like crap and looking like illness and death. So we show ourselves a certain way. I've noticed that when men seem to love the strong, confident Wendy. They love the strong, confident Wendy. They don't want the insecure one. They don't want the Wendy that needs the reassurance. They don't want the Wendy that needs when she's ill or whatever. I'm not saying all men. I'm saying a majority don't want it. They want the fantasy rather than the reality of what I am. And maybe we are to blame sometimes with that, because we don't always show ourselves 100%, but then we wouldn't. Nobody shows themselves 100% at the beginning, because if you did, some people might just run a mile. And it was a very good point here. But Steph, right, she says yes, because everyone wants to feel wanted, so not everybody shows themselves 100%. By the way, my name's Wendy. I suffer with chronic fatigue. I've got this issue, blah 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 blah.
Yes.
But you don't want to go into that, because people go, oh, and the moment they see the vulnerability, the moment they see the
take advantage of it,
they either run a while or they take advantage, and that means that you put that face up, that not being your true inner self. Because as I said right from the start, when I said, do you find that, role play comes easy to you? And people think straight away I'm talking about sex, but it was actually both things. Or do we actually hide our true inner self? Who is the real Carlene? Who is the real Michael? Who is the real Jason? And who's the real Wendy and Keith, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But that goes back to the reason you have to put that front up is because everybody you meet in this life has an agenda, good or bad. All agendas are not negative.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and people have saw me when I went through things here a while back, and the ones that I answered the phone to, the ones I trusted to not see the persona, to see the vulnerable Michael. And speaking of, I don't introduce myself. Hey, I'm this, and this. I have these issues. And there's a few people on this panel that have saw me very vulnerable. But most people ain't going to see that, because you project that male dominance, and you project that confidence. Yeah, you play the role. And that's like, I remember, and Carlene's on here now. I'm so glad she's on here. Today, Wendy said, Michael broke the internet. She asked me a question, and I said, now, I would not say that. And everything went like radio silence. It was like, and, because everybody got caught up into persona, the perception that I was in front of the camera. And when I started doing this with Valerie, then Wendy, and and someone and I want to fill it in for KB, I tell people the person you see on screen is a percentage of the real Michael, but I have to keep something in reserve for me. And it's almost like you're playing a role, and that's where the whole doctor thing comes from. Which I'm in school to be a doctor, so one day I'm just prefixing it right now because I'm getting used to see what it looks like, because it's still odd.
Projecting it out there. Yeah.
I am a put it in the universe, so it will come true, right? What is it women used to do? They used to make their vision boards.
That's right. Law of attraction. Yeah.
I want to have the picket, the house, picket fence, 2.5 kids and 3.5 dogs.
We still do.
What are you going to do with a half a dog?
We still do.
And, but like I said, I have seen people make some people would have probably told Carlene, you'll never move there. You're in a dream world. I am so happy to see Carlene or Phil.
And Carlene's energy has changed as well. Once she's achieved what her energy has changed. She seems more in her own power. And I think the same as Keith, when he gets to that point, when he feels in control and in his power, he will have achieved that. And it's like, for me, I feel in my life right now pretty lost, because I thought I was on one road, and now I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what my road is, where I'm going. Losing Henry was a massive
deja vu.
It
was just awful. And it's like, he was my grounding. He was my maternal instinct. He was my, no matter who else I didn't have in my life, I had my boy with me. And now suddenly he's gone. A massive thing has gone from my life, and no other person can actually feel that he actually felt. And now he's gone. And I think that I'm trying to find out now who I am now. What do I do? Am I staying? Am I going to Canada? Am I staying here? Am I going to go down this particular road? I don't know. And I think that I don't think I'm playing a role really more. I think, but what I do is I don't show the pain. So I put up a very good, I suppose in some ways it's a mask. You put that role up so you don't see how painful you're really feeling.
But you think about that. He become part of your identity when you tuck into the bed. You're Henry's mom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, Henry the Bassett. And that's like I tell people, you know, and I told Wendy, you know, even Henry, the ones who know what happens, you know, they know. And she's like, I don't know what I want. I was like, anything I can do in my power to help keep that stabilizing rudder in your life, I will. And I tell them, you know, when she lost Henry, I knew it was a great loss for her. It was a great loss for the UK because, you know, Henry had done so much. And you know, and he played his role. He shut down a puppy pound. They said, you know, this little bastard, you know, he's, you know, a bin dog. You might as well throw him away. He ain't going to make a year. Henry did 10 plus years. Henry took their fantasy and their reality that he wasn't going to make it and basically told him to eat shit and pound sand. And you know, and I always told him, if you ask Henry what he identified as a dinner bell. Feed me. You know what I'm saying?
And I also think as well that I've taken a lot from him, that there is like, he was just himself, right? He was just himself, and he would give out so much.
Happy bastard.
And that's who I am. I am what you see is what you get with me. But what you don't see is my vulnerability. So I put a bit of that wall up, that role play. And each one of you tonight, I've asked you all before we finished, because we've been going almost 3 hours and this is a great show. But I wanted to say to each of you that have come on, and I'll ask you, Keith, because I haven't actually asked you this yet, because I asked the others. Do you have a fantasy woman that you have not met, or you still strive to meet? What's your view on that?
Do I have a fantasy woman that I have not met yet?
Or yeah.
For 5 years, I keep seeing and feeling, not just seeing, but seeing and feeling a blonde with long, kind of curly hair with the most beautiful glowing green eyes. And if patient enough, we'll meet. Spirit keeps saying, just wait.
Just wait.
You're almost there. You're almost there. But at the same time, every day that goes by, how long do I have to wait? Maybe I just want to settle.
Yeah.
So I'm not alone.
Yeah.
But that settle might get me through the rest of my life in a decent manner. But if I wait, maybe the rest of my life will be amazing. I don't know.
But what are we actually waiting for? Because is it worth the wait? Because sometimes what we're waiting for is the fantasy, when actually what's right in front of us is the reality and is what's good for us. And that's that question, isn't it?
Yes.
I just say thank you to Sarah for that comment, because at the end of the day, that, you know, a lot of people have said that to me, that he did come to serve a purpose, and I think he did. Yeah. He definitely showed me unconditional love, and and I also think he showed me that no matter how bad life was, no matter how shit you feel, you still carry on and you get up and you keep going. And I definitely think he did serve his purpose. And
but you talk about playing a role or whatever. Even when Henry was sick, if he thought somebody was coming after his mom, he played the big bad guard dog.
Absolutely.
And you know, and Steph said I was going to make people cry, and a lot of people don't know. When I got Poseidon was abandoned here with me, and I didn't want to get attached because, believe it or not, Michael has a big ass heart. And Wendy taught me and said, "You need to do something with this dog. You need to do something with this dog, day in and day out." So, you know, neutering and puppy school and all that. You know, not that we thought Henry was going to pass suddenly or whatever, like it was. That was a shock between everything I was dealing with the loss of my dad and the estate and all that. I came in and I saw that, but the plan was it's going to cost me about $5,000, but I was going to send Poseidon to the UK. He's going to, you know, be with Wendy, and then the UK had to be dickheads and pass a law that there's no bully breeds coming into the country, which I think, you know, you project, you know, bad ownership onto a breed of dog. You want to talk about reality and fantasy? The fantasy is all pit bulls will chew their ass off and chase down the mail van and wreck their fucking mail truck.
Chow
Yeah.
chow.
I got two
Yeah.
that sleeps in the bed. You know, the worst part of them is
Freya.
what comes out of the back end, and it ain't the end that bite. And so, but now the reality that we had, that was what we had, legally and financially to get him to fly over. And now sometimes things just get so out of whack, what your perception was, what you was planning to do, and you've made all these steps. Governments can step in and say, fuck your plans, dude. What are you gonna do? Am I a one-man army that's going to start, which I could probably take most of the UK, but that's beside the
Southern
point.
spirit.
The thing is, like, there is a legal challenge this week that's going into the government to actually stop the ban, because actually no one knows what an XL bully is, because there is actually no breed called an XL bully. It's a breed that's been designed by man. And so unfortunately, any dog that's over 22 inches and there's a certain type to look at is now caught up, and that could be a Cane Corso, a Rottweiler, all different kinds of it. So we're hoping that this is really going to stop it, because I want to just bring this point up. Every bully, XL bully that's in a rescue home is going to have to be put to sleep by the 31st of December unless the government is stopped. Which means an innocent dogs will be put to sleep and killed because the government has not defined so American bulldogs are very different to a XL bully. XL bullies are enormous. They're an enormous breeds, and they're bred for quite a few reasons, sadly. But the American bulldog is a very different dog to that. So we've got no definition of what is real and what's not. So now you've got to get your dog exempted. It's got to be neutered. It's got to have you've got to pay for this. You've got to get insurance, not pet insurance, liability insurance. Your dog's got to be muzzled if it goes out in public anymore. That dog can't go around and run around the field off the lead anymore. It's got to stay on the lead. Now, yes,
you can't be a dog.
It can't be a dog. You're gonna blame some bad owners.
Yeah.
For
that's it. But that
like I
goes
said,
back.
my sister had a pit bull mix, and the pit bull was a rescue dog, and never had attention. She was a breeder so that it could have fighting dogs. And the only thing you had to worry about that dog was she'd kiss your face off.
Oh, yeah.
She'd lick you to death.
Well, you see this one here. He just comes up and wants to put his head under here, and he wants.
Like I said, they're blaming the wrong end of the leash in every country, not just England, everywhere.
I would ask anyone that is in the United Kingdom. Scotland has actually ignored the ban, and actually a lot of dogs are being sent to Scotland right now. Wales and England are in it, and Northern Ireland is not in it at the moment. But the trouble is, there are Battersea Dogs Home and places like the Dogs Trust who vow never to put down a healthy dog. I've now been told by the government, if you do not do this, if you have an XL bully, you can't rehome it. You can't sell it. You can't breed. So, for instance, if I was to rehome an XL bully and that didn't work out, that situation just didn't work out, I can't give that dog to anyone else. I can't send it to a rescue. There is only one way out for that dog, and that is that dog to be put down. There is no way around of it. And people don't realize how, we're fighting. A lot of people are fighting over here to stop this ban going through. So I would ask people in the UK to go to Battersea Dogs Home, to see the XL bullies that are desperately looking for homes right now, to go onto Dogs Trust, to see if they know of anybody in Scotland that could give these animals a home, so that some of them.
Because time is ticking. Time is up at the essence.
On the 31st of October, 31st of December is the last day. Unless that legal challenging comes in and actually wins the ban to be postponed. But I mean, the UK government right now, we did it with pit bulls. You can still have a pit bull in this country as long as it's licensed. So it is really, really, really sad. So I just wanted to bring that up because as it came in, I want to say thank you to everybody that's been on tonight, because Val couldn't be here. She wasn't at all well. And Kay comes on when she can. But it was really important because we want to get Wicked Women back onto a regular Sunday. Next week is Christmas Eve. And we are going to be here. There is going to be a Christmas special. We are going to dress up. God help you. We are going to dress up for it.
Yes.
Val has shown me her costume. It's very, very nice. So I'm going to have to find mine. And I just want to thank Carleen. This is your first time, I think, coming on to Wicked Women. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and coming on and being the other woman voice. And we will see you again. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I'll be out and about, and I finally figured out on my new phone and tablet I have to actually download the StreamYard app to get in.
Yeah.
Well,
so I won't have to steal my husband's phone.
Well, listen, lovely to see you, Carleen, and I hope to see you again real soon. Lots of love. Lots of love. Jason, as usual, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Fun, and how dare you eat all those cakes in front of us? I'm sure.
Sorry, those weren't cakes. Those were cookies.
Biscuits.
Those were not biscuits.
Or stones.
But it's lovely to see you, and we hope to see you next week, Jason. Take care, my love.
All right, have a good one.
Keith, as usual, you came right at the end. I'm so my Mr. Wickeds are here. Thank you so much for coming in to see us.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. Thank you for being patient. I had to get myself into the right frame of mind before I.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. But you know what? I absolutely love that you came on to be a part of it. I did see some of your live earlier on. So, but hopefully you'll come and join us the Christmas Eve when, if you're around, of course, and bring a bit of fun into it. So keep your, as we say in the UK, keep your pecker up and don't let the bastards beat you. All right, my darling.
Damn, I want to steal that. Just the predict you got, right? Not the
Michael, you look very festive there. Thank you so much.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like the little smiley thing that I got on my other jacket. And people ask me, they say, "Oh, why do you got the smiley on for?" Because, the little girl give it to me. And it makes me more approachable. And because, like I said, now I can't get my Christmas lights to turn off. I got to save the battery for next week. But like I said, and that's like I was wearing them last night. People are like, "Why are you wearing Christmas lights for?" I said, "Damn it, so I can be approachable." But people who know me know. The real people know me know that I'm pretty approachable. And
well, thank you for coming on and for joining. You look lovely. You look amazing. Thank you so much. And I will see you again next week. I just want to thank everybody in the comment section. You've been absolutely fantastic. Sarah, Steph, Spirit, David. I'm trying to remember everyone that's left a comment. If I've forgotten you, please forgive me. I'm just so grateful you guys have come and joined the show. So the next following week, we've got Scotty Roberts on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with the Intrepid Radio Show. I always plug his show. I need to get him to plug mine. And on Tuesday, Scotty and I will be back with Roberts and Robertson. We will be here. I actually don't know the topic yet, but I'm sure we will find a really good one. And then we will be back next Sunday with Wicked Women. It's our Christmas show. Val will be here, and hopefully we might have a few more ladies to join us along with the gents as well. In the meantime, this week, I hope all of you guys have a great weekend, and remember, take care of yourself and each other.